shoot. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, stop me. 4 takes, let's shoot. 3 takes, not me. 2 takes if you lucky. First take, you got me.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Cobb and Dash Show. It's the first episode of the new year, the 2024 season. It was lovely seeing everybody last weekend. I know Cobb had an amazing time hosting. The guys who flew in, drove in Hotch, drove in a couple hours. Stu flew in. I'm excited about this year. It's we look at the teams before we got on here, and we saw that everyone it's a pretty close year. I mean, I don't see one team that's over the top good. I don't see one team that's over the top bad. Well, there's one team that just kind of not over the top bad, but I think this person, and we'll get into it later when we go to our teams, but I think this person maybe thought we were in a dynasty league, not a keeper league so much. So we're going to get to that in a little bit, but how's everyone doing? How'd you guys enjoy Saturday's draft? Where's that rank? Where's that draft rank and draft that we've had, live drafts we've had?
Oh, man. I think it was better than last year, that's for sure. It was nice having Jack be there for his first draft. I'll say I missed Perry Beasley sitting in the corner, sipping away at his 12-pack, his personal 12-pack in his lawn chair. But no, I think it was a better setup this year. We all had space. It was nice seeing as many people come in as they could. But obviously we were missing a few more owners than I think we were last year in the last few years. So that's the only downside. But overall, I don't know. I feel like it was one of the best or better drafts in a while. Yeah,
the remote guys they said it was fine, but they said that you guys, it seemed like we had trouble hearing them, which we did have trouble hearing them. They just needed to up their Wi-Fi and, just come in person. And also a lot of people were upset that we didn't respond back to their trades fast enough over text. But we're having such a good time at the live draft. It's why you guys need to come, because you have key times. You don't look at your phone. You're just vibing. Alex, Stu's commenting here saying Alex back. You should probably address the elephant in the room that you quit during the year last year. Sunday, you told us that you wanted back in, and talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's first off, it's great to be back here. It's fantastic. Felt like I never skipped a beat. To be completely honest, yeah. So obviously we know what's going on last year. Part of this extended rebuild process. Had an amazing draft at Cobb's new place. Felt rejuvenized, like the young squad I got. And on top of that, I'm sure as people saw on our Facebook group, there was a rebuild. There was a rebuild that happened. We are now giving 69ers a try. It's a little inside joke. Ask ZT all about it. We just feel like it's a new year. We're ready to be back and give it our all.
I will say your new teammate did ruffle some people's feathers in the league. The person right here, Stu, didn't like that. You weren't part of that inside joke, and you're still making that joke with the 69ers thing. It's all fun and games. That's what this league's about, baby. And you got David Roden here. We have half the league in the chat right now. I don't know if it's all half the league. We got Tasia in here. We got significant other in here of Cobb's. Victoria, who was also at the draft a little bit, was also there for the after party of the draft as well. And then we got Alex in while he's competitive. Yeah, that's pretty much what he was getting at there.
Damn right.
Yeah. Although poor Cobb, the guy maintained being a co-host all season, was the freaking Pancake King. So kudos to this guy. Gotta love. That's why he's Cobb. But okay, so for this episode tonight, we're going to go over teams. We've already assigned all the teams that we're going to talk about tonight. The way this episode will go is we'll go by rankings of last year so worst team will get talked about first, and the top team will get talked about last. So Cobb will be talked about first, and that Alex is going to be going and talking about Cobb's team. He's going to pretty much give his analysis on it. Cobb can come back with any feedback he has for on his team, and then afterwards get to the Pancake King rankings presented by IHOP, home of the stack. Pumpkin pancakes are just around the corner here, guys, about a month away. And so we'll get to that advertisement later when we get to the Pancake King rankings. And then we'll do super early playoff projections. So the top 6 teams based on what we're seeing right now with the teams that are there. I know a lot of people are hyping up Taja's team right now. That's the talk of the town right now. Everyone's kind of shocked at Taja's team. But we'll talk about that in a second here, because I think I think someone might have to put a little stop on that. And then Cobb will be going over to Taja's team. But we'll begin, guys. So with this year, we're going to try to utilize some of the functionalities we have on the show. So we're going to be sharing the screen while guys are talking about teams. So tonight we'll be talking about for the first episode or the first segment, we'll be talking about Cobb squad, and Alex is going to do that. So let me share my screen here so we can get look at that. Look at that beauty. Look at this. You're doing Cobb's team with Cobb. What's your team right now?
Still ZT's crystal ball.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right, Alex, take us away, buddy.
Yeah, so I mean, Cobb's was in a really good position going into this draft. I ran, from the moment the keeper deadline was set until the draft. I ran, and I know us, personally, we ran some mock drafts together of the first couple rounds just to get a kind of idea of what everyone's roster was going to look like. There was a decent amount of surprises in the first couple of rounds that I didn't foresee coming with certain teams. So some rosters looked a little bit different, but Cobb's roster was one that you could almost pencil in what his starting lineup was going to look like before the draft even happened. Because one, he obviously had 3 keepers, but he had the 101 and the 103, and so there's not a lot of there's going to be no reaches at those positions. It's pretty clear and obvious based off who was sent back, who was going to go. And so I think before the draft even took place, and it's not to say that he didn't have a good draft, he just set himself up really well. I think right now, it's, to me, with this loaded roster, and we'll talk about rankings at the end. I mean, this is, to me, clearly a playoff team, and one that I think the expectation for this team is that he's going to be someone that is going to compete for a potential bye week. Just looking at Marvin Harrison, Bijan, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, just those 4 alone. If you look at any, Fantasy Pros rankings, those guys are going in the top 2 rounds. So, when you compare it to a redraft team, he literally has 4 guys that would have gone in the first 2 rounds of a redraft. And so, by being able to acquire that draft capital and be in that position, it's hard to say that this isn't a team that has a legit shot to compete for a bye week. So he's in a good spot.
Cobb, any feedback to what Alex says about your team here? Do you think he's already starting the reverse jinx by hyping up your team right before he plays you week 1?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if he started it, I'll continue it. I was pretty happy with how the draft turned out for the most part. Again, like Alex said, I was set up pretty good. I was happy with my keepers. I know Wilson and Olave are 2 guys that really need to prove it this year, I think, because those are guys that I'm banking on for the rest of the for a few years to come. I also want to I see you scrolling on my kicker that looks like me, so I was glad to get him. I thought that was a good in-draft moment there, but I also, took another risk keeping another quarterback. I've had a bad stretch of that with Lawrence last year, Russell Wilson the year before, and then Kyler Murray worked for me really well the first 2 years and then kind of dropped off that 3rd year. So taking another risk, hoping it lands. I liked not having to worry about that, especially with my top draft completely untouched. But yeah, and then I obviously took a risk with MHJ. I think up until the moment of the draft, I was leading ETN for the most part. But then I was just like, I have the opportunity to do something fun. I had ETN last year. I think it was a safer pick for sure. But I had a good chat with Tasia, almost got him to trade up, thought I had it. And then even though I didn't get that done, I decided to give him a little break and take MHJ, and ETN ended up falling to him. So we'll get to his team later. But no, I'm excited about my team. And I think I should be in the playoffs. And hopefully it was just a 1-year rebuild.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it was a 1-year rebuild. And I gotta say, your pick did kind of open up the floodgates as far as the surprise, because no one knew if you were going to go Marvin Harrison there, no one knew if you were going to go Travis Etienne there, and then when you went Marvin Harrison, and I think you did it pretty early too. I don't think you really waited like that much on the clocks. Because I'm kind of eyeing the clock. I think you did it within 10 seconds of you having the pick, and you kind of knew you were going Marvin Harrison Jr. there. And I think Tasia was definitely happy about that because he wanted Etienne. I don't think he would have even picked Marvin Harrison Jr., which is pretty interesting. But the fact that, you were able to get Bijan with your number 1 pick, so you got the running back squared away. It really didn't matter where you went there. I know you were trying to trade the pick, but Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, I think you probably did a lot of research up on him, because I knew you were kind of not sold on him for pretty much all week, and then you went with it pretty early on. What was kind of the overriding reason for going Marvin Harrison Jr. so fast?
I think in last year, what got me was playing it too safe. And I saw upside, or more upside, with MHJ. Obviously, he's not going to be a keeper. Or most likely won't be a keeper from here on out. So this might be the only shot I get at having him. And, I wanted to be able to say that I drafted him first, and hopefully it's a fun ride for the first year. So I think that's kind of what got me there.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun ride for sure. I do agree with Alex. We'll get to playoff rankings later, but I think, this is a playoff team as right now. Very early, obviously, but nonetheless. So we're going to go back the other way. So Alex talked about Cobb's squad. Now, oh, wait, no. So Cobb's not talking about Alex's squad. I guess I am. All right. It's kind of weak. I was hoping Cobb was going to take that one, but I'll take Alex's squad. What was the 69ers? God. All right. So the 69ers, I just want to make sure everyone knows what that is. ZT, all he did was he just asked us in our group message if we did it often or if we do it. That's pretty much it. That's the extent of the story that ZT told. That was it. There's nothing more than that. I don't want people thinking like, he's a king of it or something like that. Poor guy. I don't know what Chris let him do. He just asked us if we've done it before, and that was pretty much it. So that's why we're putting the 69ers next to ZT's name. So that's it. Just end it there. So I will say, looking at Alex's squad, so he went with CJ Stroud. He was able to keep Jonathan Taylor and getting in that trade he did with Tasia. Great pick. Did we lose Cobb? I think he might have lost him.
There he
No,
is.
Oh, okay. Just making sure he's all right. And then you were able to get Aaron Jones at the end of the second round, which is great. I thought I was going to get him at the top of the second, and then I was, what? There's better meat out there, but I would have loved Aaron Jones, and I think Aaron Jones is solid. Jake Ferguson, probably one of the most solid tight ends there was last year. Tank Dell and the CJ Stroud stack, that's it on itself. But being able to get Saquon early in the first round, which I think is going to be amazing in Philadelphia, and then to come back and get Cooper Kupp at the end of the first round, which take us back a couple of years ago, the old Cooper Kupp Marcus Berry trade, which you kind of fleeced him in a way, and you're able to get him at the end of the first round. I mean, I think as long as he stays healthy, I think this is obviously a playoff team. I know you've had your woes in the playoffs, but if CJ Stroud doesn't have a sophomore slump, if Tank Dell is back to being 100%, this is a team that could go very, very far, and that we might actually see you get your first playoff win. And what would be really funny is if you were a top 2 seed, you get a bye, but then you lose in your first playoff game. That'd be pretty funny. That you got a bye and then you lose in your first playoff game. But no, I think it's a great team top to bottom. I think the Yahoo grades were big fans of your squad as well. But looking at your depth, I know you you did a nice mix of drafting like by rankings wise, and then also doing a little bit of hot style going for some of the young bucks and Adonai Mitchell, Lad McConkey. So yeah, I do like your team. And Jacoby, is that Jacoby Myers at the end? Yeah, you got Jacoby Myers at the end of your bench, who was amazing last year in all measures. But I love your team. I really do. I think this is a really solid team. And having Amari Cooper off the bench as a 6-man, it's amazing. Love the squad. Love what you're doing with this. If everyone stays healthy, this is a team that could be a team to be reckoned with this year, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I feel like, last year, I think the last 2 years, I've been riddled with injuries early, and I was extremely top heavy. Like I like my keepers. I think the last 2 years, when you looked at, when you compared it to rankings, it was guys that were being drafted like, either early second or late first round in terms of like, where the redraft value was. But I gave up a lot of picks to be able to acquire those guys. And so like the last 2-3 years, even though I've been top heavy, I've had like no depth at all. And as we've seen, I mean, I've just been riddled with injuries, and when you're, so heavily reliant on a couple players, and when that guy gets hurt, it just completely, your season's done. So I feel I was actually, before, as I think Dash knows the story, there was potential trade talks of not keeping Tank Dell last minute. And I was kind of going back and forth all off season. And I really was unsure what my team would look like. And I honestly, before the keeper deadline was like, kind of frustrated and not that happy with what my team potentially was going to look like until the draft, until I did a couple mocks and, obviously seeing how draft day fell. I actually feel like this team's very well-rounded, which is different than teams I've had in the past. So, I mean, I definitely think with the guys on my team, if they can stay healthy, I think this is a team that, at a minimum should be able to get, a wild card playoff spot. If we can compete for a bye, that's great. If it happens, it happens. But, hopefully because it's a different archetype that I typically draft, where it's a little bit more well-rounded. Hopefully, the curse is over this year. I've had Barry as my team name the last 7 years in a row. Different names, but with his name being in there. So we moved on from Barry, and hopefully the curse is over. So
might be. And I'll say this too. You did kind of ruffle some feathers. The public's not really happy with your squad. You went and drafted Harrison Butker and then picked up Aaron Rodgers. So you got a sexist on your team, and you got a guy who's anti-vax on your team. So some people are saying that you got a lot of the groups out there don't want you to win. They're anti-Alex. They're protesting outside the BL Plus HQ. I got protesters with signs saying "Get Alex out of the league," and I'm like, whoa. I mean, what am I supposed to do here? My hands are tied. So yeah, the Aaron Rodgers pickup. I think the Aaron Rodgers pickup is much better than your draft, Daniel Jones. That was one of the jokes after you left Saturday. A lot of people were like, "Geez, I can't believe you drafted Daniel Jones. What the hell is he doing?" God forbid something happens to CJ Stroud. Daniel Jones is coming in there. Jesus. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, he might be all right this year. He might be all right. I know Cobb is definitely pulling for him with Garrett Wilson being his guy. So I like it. Cobb, anything to say real quickly about Alex's team?
No, I mean, you guys covered a great looking squad. Definitely one of the, and again, we'll get to it, but definitely one of the teams I think won the draft and came out of the draft with I don't say locked in playoff spot, but I would highly expect this team to be in the playoffs pretty easily. Yeah,
100%. So okay, next team we're gonna go to the man's first draft, and I think he's on the chat right now. He's in the live. We got half the leagues. We have 6 people in the live right now, or 5 people in the live right now. So I think Jack is one of them, and I believe Alex is going to go over this team. It's his first draft. Not a good look. It didn't start off well with him, Hotch, and Yagler coming in late. But nonetheless, he didn't have a first round pick, so it really didn't matter for him. I think he got there. I think they got there mid-second or mid-third. But they ended up getting there at some point. But talk to us about Lil J, Jack Louis' team. A lot of people are saying he might be Rookie of the Year. He's the only rookie in the league, so I mean, I think he's already a lock for that. It's like minus 2,000 for him to get that award. But what do you think about Lil Jack's team, Alex?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a decent squad. What I would have to say is I really like what he did with the draft. Obviously, it's tough when you don't have a first round pick, especially, in this format of a league where, you have the top 36 players off the board. And so, you're not going to have, unless you keep like a really heavy hitter, it's hard to be, to have that one stud. And that's potentially what the squad's lacking. But with the capital he had, I actually am a big fan of all the picks that he made. I really am. I think that he did a really good job drafting. Like I said, I would have loved it. And I know that he's also kind of handcuffed because he took over, Paul's squad in the middle of last year. And I don't remember, did he make that trade to give up his first overall, or did Paul already do that?
Paul already did. That's why Paul paid for his dues this year.
That's right. So, I mean, he inherited that mess. So, anytime you take over a new team, I mean, Tasia knows, especially a bottom team, it takes usually two draft cycles to be able to rebuild your team to where it's, competitive to win a championship. And so, and he took over a team that also didn't have a first overall pick. And so, you're kind of handcuffed there. So realistically, because his best players, when you look at Fantasy Pros rankings or Yahoo, whatever rankings you look at, like Pacheco might be his top guy potentially, or Achan, like one of the two of them, or maybe their top guys. And those guys are being drafted the end of that second round, 2-3 turn. Like he doesn't have that Bijan, that an AJ Brown's, Tyreek Hill. He doesn't have that one stud on his team. And so when you look at a couple other rosters, I know they've already looked at, my team and Cobb's team, and we'll get to Tasia's and Dash's. There's a couple other, a solid 5-6 teams out there. it's going to be very hard to try to compete. So realistically, as well as he did with this, I think he's setting himself up for next year, 2025, with some of the prospects that, especially Brian Thomas Jr. I'm a huge Brian Thomas Jr. fan. Like if he hits and has an electric rookie year, I mean, he's going to have some really solid options going into next season. And so I think he's doing a great job with this franchise. But for this season alone, which was what we care about, the 2024 season, I think he's going to be in the wild card race for, at least the first half of the season. I think he's probably an outside looking in. Like I haven't sat down and done 1 through 12, but I probably have him in that like 7 to 9 range, somewhere around there. But I mean, anything can happen. You can definitely, potentially compete for that last spot.
Well, we're doing 1 through 12 tonight, buddy. So you better get that Pancake King rankings list going. Not saying Jack's going to be the Pancake King, but he'll be close to a Pancake King that he will be a champion, at least this year. But I gotta say, he was solid at the draft. He was solid post game at the draft. I mean, I heard I wasn't there for a lot of the post draft stuff. I came back later, but apparently, guy was locked in. Just kept staring at the draft board. I mean, there's a few things that make you stand out in this league, and one of those things is going to the draft board, just staring at it. Everyone knows that after the draft, it's a thing that we do. We go and stand in front of it's like a talking piece. It's like something. It's a conversation piece. You go to the draft board, you look there and just look at it. Everyone knows you do it, and the fact that he did that, and it was an inherently thing. It was an innate in him. It was like he knew that that's the right thing to do. That's how you know this guy's bought into the league. That guy's a gamer, and I'm rooting for him. I don't know if he's going to make the playoffs with this team, but if A-Chain has a big leap this year, a lot of people think he will. Pacheco, I think he's going to be phenomenal this year. Brock Purdy was great last year. I know the IU situation is kind of a mess. No Trent Williams as of right now, and there's a chance at least week 1 we won't have either one of them. So, but he did make that trade for Kyler Murray during the draft. So, I mean, he's got that there. And then Mark Andrews, solid tight end as long as he stays healthy. Christian Kirk, solid. I mean, it's a solid team. I wouldn't say it's a bad team, but so far all the teams we've seen, we've looked at, it's by far the lowest ranked one of the teams we've looked at. But it's not a bad team. But yes, Paul didn't do him any favors by not giving him a first round pick, and that's the reality of it. Give him a first round pick. He's got Christian Kirk come off the bench, So solid team. I think Jack's a great addition. I've already told a story about how he came into the league. It was like a perfect storm. I meet Jack Saturday at Hotch's wedding, the champion of the league, and Jack talks to me about the league. He says, "I've heard all about it. I want in." I'm like, "Hey, if we ever get a replacement, you're the first guy I'm calling." What happened? Next day, 4 o'clock, after the 1 o'clocks, Paul said, "I'm out. I can't be in this league anymore." And boom, signed, still delivered. Little J takes over, and rest is history, to be quite honest with you. And I got to say, Roden's even saying it. He wasn't at the draft, but he knows what I'm talking about. The thing about staring at the draft board. Dude, 100%. After the draft, no matter how long you stay, and he stayed the whole time. I give him credit. He stayed the entire time. You look at the draft, it's just a thing. You just go to it. That's how you know the guy's the real deal. Yes, I missed the Hosh trade. Kyler Murray mid-draft. What did that deal look like? I think he traded like a 7th round pick or something like that.
Yeah, it was for JSN, basically.
Yeah, he traded back in. Hodge became the second owner in BL Plus history to trade his keeper on draft day. First one to ever do that was ZT trading me James Conner on draft day. So Hodge made history this weekend, and so did Lil J, and I'm excited about Lil J. Cobb, anything you want to say about Lil J? I know you're feeling the same kind of vibes I'm feeling about Lil J.
Yeah, vibes were super high during the whole draft. It's always interesting to see how someone's first draft goes, and I mean, his team might not be the top, but it's also like we've seen some abysmal performances from a first drafter. So to say that he did a good job, would be an understatement, especially again without that first. We saw it's unfortunate that a lot of new owners coming in don't have a first. Teams trade their first, don't want to buy in for next year because their teams are struggling. It's sad to see, but yeah, Jack was all in. I've heard a lot of comments coming from him about how much fun he was having, how much he liked the vibes from other owners in the league as well. And yeah, excited to see what he can do for the rest of the year.
I mean, the fact that I saw him, I heard that he was going to the draft board all night long. Like that tells you so much about a guy. It tells you so much about a person, about a human being. Yeah. The guy's built for this. That's all I got to say about that. All right, moving on to our next owners. It's Tasia. So, Cobb, you get your first owner to kind of dissect their draft and their team. So this will be a fun one.
Skipping over Yags.
What's that?
Skipping over Yags.
Did I skip over Yags?
Yeah.
Oh.
We're going bottom to top.
But didn't Tasia pick before Yags? Oh, no, you're right. Yags picked before him. Never mind. I guess I'll go with the Yags. Okay. What was Yags' weak team name under new management? He needs to change the thumbnail and the team name. Like, that needs to happen like ASAP. Okay, so we got Yagler's team here. Okay, so now last year, if you guys watched the show, and I know some of you guys did who are in the chat right now, you guys would know that I was a huge Dave Roden guy last year. He was a guy that I backed all season long, and I was wrong for the most part. He didn't go where I thought he was going to go, and that's fine. It happens. It's fantasy, it's random. But this year, I think my guy that I'm backing, and I'm still going to back Dave's team, of course. I'll make some excuses for it later on, but I like Yagler's team a lot. And Hotch made a big point to just shit on Yagler's team after the draft. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It was a really good team. And we were doing the import in the draft. And there was one point where we fucked up and Terry McLaurin wasn't on his team. And we already done Yagler's team. And I'm like, wait, what? We haven't done, he has Terry McLaurin too. And I'm like, dude, he's got a team full of number one receivers on his team. Like, what the hell? No one's even talking about this. It's like going by the wayside no one's talking about. But let's begin. Jordan Love, who a lot of people think he could have an MVP caliber season. A lot of Vegas bettors, sharps are saying to take Jordan Love's MVP odds. That team is deep, top to bottom. You look at the receivers. Romeo Doubs, no coincidence. He's got him as a stack. So if he wants to stack it up, he's got Romeo Doubs. And that's the thing. He kept this guy, and Romeo Doubs isn't even a starting lineup. Okay, that's how deep that Yagler's team is. But anyway, Packers are a team to watch this year, and Jordan Love could be at the center of it. So I love that. Justin Jefferson, who we got from Hotch, who Hotch is so mad that he traded for him, and he's trying to get him back. Not going to happen because Yagler's in it to win it. And Justin Jefferson, 7th round tender, amazing. Derrick Henry, Baltimore now. That's going to be really exciting. I know he's old, but you're not keeping your first round tender anyway. He'll probably get a new guy next year in the first round. But King Henry and Baltimore, at least for this year, should be something to watch, to be quite honest with you. Cole Kmet, yeah, it's a tight end. I mean, outside the top 5, you're kind of picking a random thing for your tight end spot. Outside the top 5 guys, and that's how it is. I mean, just a random thing. Cole Kmet could be key. They have a lot of options over there. They may focus more on the receivers, and Cole Kmet could be a guy, but Caleb Williams didn't really throw into his tight end. So I'm curious thing to watch there. But let's be honest, if Yags' season is do or die by his tight end, then whatever. That's ridiculous. It's not going to happen because this team is so deep. Let's go as flexes. Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin as his last flex. I mean, guys, this team is legit. This is all bunch of number one receivers. Jefferson, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins. I think I have to say this might be the best top to bottom wide receiver group in our league on a given team. I think it's not even close. I don't think anyone's even comes close to it. I mean, yeah, you might say some guys, your team, Cobb, for example, you have a lot of young guys, maybe haven't reached their potential yet. Justin Jefferson, number one receiver in the league. T. Higgins, solid. Terry McLaurin, number one receiver. Devontae Smith, 1B, 1A, some people say over there in Philadelphia. I love this team. Go to the bench. Now, this is where it kind of gets, okay, there's some flaws to it. That's why I'm taking a risk by saying this is my squad this year to ride with. It's not the best bench. I would say it's probably one of the worst benches in the league. But, hey, as long as this guy's in the starting line stay healthy, this is a team to watch. Devin Singletary is starting back as of right now. Romeo Doubs, a lot of people love him in fantasy this year. He kept him. I think Doubs is going to be great. And then Ricky Pearsall, I know Hodge probably would want him because he's a rookie receiver. I mean, he's going to take over the Brandon Ayuk role if they trade him. So that could be something to watch. Austin Eckler in Washington, that could be fun. But overall, I think this is a team to be reckoned with. This is a team that we might be looking at as a 6 spot to make the playoffs. Because right now, I haven't made my full list yet, but 6 is kind of a question mark on who's going to be that 6th team. And I think we might be looking at it right here. I know you guys may think I'm joking here, and you might be this is funny, but this is a solid team. So I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about this team. Because I'm kind of all in on Yaglu this year.
Yeah, I can hop in first. Like you said, his receivers are probably top of the league, and that's especially in a league that's full PPR, allows you to play 3 flexes. it's a great thing. And then you have one of his keepers, Dobbs, coming off the bench, and like if he starts performing like Yags expects because he kept him, I mean that's a trade piece, or at least, or like one of these guys being a trade piece, or at least like a great plug and play. Just super dangerous team. There was like T. Higgins is a guy that I was really excited about drafting. Got taken right before my pick, and I was really bummed about that one. He also got Devontae Smith, Terry McLaurin were all guys that I was like eyeing that I thought were undervalued coming into the season. And Yags did his research this year. He struggled at, like last year he was running out of names. This year he came with an abundance of names. He was ready to go.
And one caveat to that, he did say during the draft, he goes that when people were drafting guys, he was like, I don't know any of these guys are being drafted right now. It was around 17 when he was saying that. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was kind of funny. But no, great team. He did his research, you can tell. Alex, any quick thoughts on Yags?
Yeah, I think I agree pretty much with everything you said. I honestly hadn't sat down and spent a lot of time dissecting his team. And I think you're right. I mean, I'm not going to put this, there's three tiers for me. It's like, playoff lock, competing for bye week, kind of like questionable wild card, and then pancake king, kind of watch list. And I have him right solidly in that middle section, so it'll be interesting to see exactly where I put him in my rankings. But I think he's definitely flirting with that close to potential 6 seed. The one thing I will say, and I just don't know exactly how these rankings are going to play out, I'm doing this kind of right now in live time. The only thing, if he's right there in the bubble, comes into play with, can he execute as a manager throughout the season to get this team to that point and overcome bye weeks and adversity? I'm just not quite sure if we've seen that from him as an owner yet. But we'll have to see how this shakes out. It definitely could be a competitive squad.
Okay, yeah. I'm curious, everybody in the chat, I know we have about half the league in the chat. What do you guys think about Yaglu's team? Give us your thoughts, input, and we'll display it throughout the episode. Because Yaglu's, when I said Yaglu's team was going to make the playoffs, Hotch wanted to slap me in the face. Dude, no, he's not. You're just saying that. I'm like, no, dude, he is. And I didn't even, at the time, I didn't even know he had McLaurin. I mean, this is a great team. Devin Singletary off the bench, his keeper Romeo Dobbs off the bench. I mean, it's a really good team. And that's the thing. If you don't even look at it, you just kind of think, oh, Yaglu's team is probably subpar. No, this is a legit team. And Alex is right. He needs to manage it, make key moves, maybe not make trades just yet, just see what's going on. But I love it. And if the only thing you could say about his team is, oh, he's got a bad tight end. Well, it's not a bad tight end. It's mid-tier, but it's outside the top 4, your tight end's going to be mid-tier. And so, yeah. All right, so now we're going to hear from our guy, Cobb, on our guy Tasha's team. So a lot of noise about this team. Everyone's talking about this squad right now. The post-draft, this is the most everyone's favorite draft. I would say everyone's favorite team. So, Cobb, take it away, buddy.
I mean, definitely one of my favorite drafts. That after looking through everybody else's. Taja's one a guy that he really didn't know who was going to be there at that 105 spot. And we had a little section over by the kitchen in the draft, and he was talking to me about taking Jalen Hurts at 105. And he ended up getting not only Jalen Hurts in the end of the second, he got ETN at 105, which was his best case scenario. He said that completely threw off his draft strategy because ETN fell to him. And that was obviously because I took MHJ, and then Yag still stuck with Henry because of the TD upside there. I don't think he could have made out any better than he did. If I either take ETN or Yag takes ETN or something, the whole draft shakes it up. ZB ends up getting MHJ maybe at 106. And then who knows how the rest of that would fall. But getting Jalen Hurts at the end of the second really secured his team, I think. Because his keepers were already really good. And I mean, Jalen Hurts, Tyreek Hill, Breece Hall, Trey McBride, ETN, that's star-studded. That's a loaded team that has a super high floor, super high ceiling. And this is going to be a team to reckon with. I'm glad. Actually, I haven't checked my schedule. I'm hoping he's not one of the teams that I face early on. I know I get Alex week 1, which is a tough draw, but easily one of the best drafters. And then you look at his bench. I mean, even before his bench, talk about Rashee Rice, Chris Godwin. Those are really consistent guys that should be consistent players, guys that you really just needed solid pieces around those the kind of his star-studded top of the lineup, and he did just that. Drafting those guys, drafting Zamir White, Jaden Reed, Zach Moss, Cortland Sutton, DeAndre Hopkins, who we got both. He was deciding between the two. We ended up getting both of them because they kept dropping, and like they might not be flashy names, but he didn't need that at that point of the draft, and he just needed consistency and just some solid, reliable guys that he could change in and out for bye weeks and stuff. I mean, I really don't see many holes in this team, if any. It's a very scary team to look at. And kind of going back to his keepers, if he was able to like trade some, I think Kenneth Walker was one guy that he was trying to trade. If he was able to do that, like his draft could have somehow looked even better because he probably would have gotten another mid-round pick for that. But yeah, I mean, it's like you see Roden's comment here on the screen. We're going to get to it later in the show, but that's about where Tasia is for me as well.
Yeah, you can't argue with it. And the funny thing is, you look at his depth. His depth actually might like be comparable to like some teams starting guys in the league. And like when in fantasy, I mean, yeah, you hate to see guys get injured, but shit happens, and these guys will get injured. That's that depth piece that he has from top to bottom. To be quite honest with you, Tank Bigsby. He's lucky he got Tank Bigsby to in case Etienne loses touches, because there's a chance. A lot of people thought last year Bigsby was going to be the guy taking carries from Etienne. And so far, preseason, it's been kind of 70-30, 60-40, I would say. But, yeah, I mean, it's great that he got him, and that's his last flex. Zach Moss. I was surprised Zach Moss went after Chase Brown. So, like, that was another great move there. D-Hop late as hell, like around 12 or 11. That was nuts. So, yeah, I like what Tasia did top to bottom. Yeah, I think this is a top two team as where we sit right now. So, Alex, any thoughts on Tasia's team?
Yeah, I agree. I think so. You know, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, there's kind of like those three tiers. Like this is a lock for playoffs. You know, has a good shot to fight for the bye. Then obviously like the kind of in between, and then like the outside looking in. I think he's solidly at the top of that first tier. So there's probably 3 or 4 teams in my opinion that I'm very confident this team's gonna make the playoffs. They can compete for a bye week. Tasia's in that tier, and I think more than likely when we do these rankings, I'm probably going to have him at number 1. But, and not to take away anything from his squad, because he's got, he's loaded. It's not a full-on super team. Like I've been in a couple keeper leagues before, and I think there's been 1 or 2 teams like that in this, league past, where it's like, dude, that's like high over heels better than any other team. Like if they don't win it, it's an absolute choke. Like I've seen some of those super teams. I don't know if it has that type of classification. Like I don't know if this team in particular is 10 times better than the couple that are below there. But I will give them credit and say that right now I have them kind of in the one slot. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
The only pushback I would have is that this is not considered a super team than what is. I mean, the Jalen Hurts, a lot of experts have him as a top 3 fantasy quarterback. Tyreek Hill, top 3 wide receiver. Breece Hall, top 3 running backs. I mean, that's 3 positions right there that we could say top 3. And so I mean, and then Travis Etienne, top 10 running back. Trey McBride, a lot of people see him as a top 4, top 5 tight end this year. So I mean, I'm curious if that's not a super team, then what would be a super team in your definition? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, it's up there. I'm going to have this at the 1. I've seen a couple situations where, both, all 3 starting flexes are kind of like, and there's, going in like the top 24 picks as well. So again, this is by far, has the most top heaviness and star-studded players. Absolutely. Not taking anything away from Rashid Rice or Chris Godwin. I just, I don't know if that's the top 3, flexes in the league. I think it's the top 3 starting 4, no doubt. I think the flexes are up there too, is, one of the better ones, but I don't know if it's that completely dominant from top to bottom. But again, I still definitely have this as my 1 team.
Fair. Cobb, anything else you want to
add? No, not really. I mean, it's not going to change my mind too much on where Tasia stands for me. I mean, it's a super. I mean, I don't really think you can see too many super teams unless teams come in with like the top 3 keepers, and then also a bunch of like early round picks. Tasia had a clean draft board for the most part. He made. We ended up making a trade in the draft. He did what he needed to do when he saw the vision of what kind of team he could build, coming back into the second to get Jalen Hurts, and that really just set the tone for the rest of the draft and his team. So I mean, again, we were talking about Alex's team and my team earlier. I think I mean, Taja's up there for me. I got to figure out the final rankings for me, but that's an easy playoff team for me regardless.
And Taja speaks, my last 2 flexes would have to be Wilson and Henry. And he gave a crying emoji to Alex's explanation on what Taja's team has to be a legit super team. So Taja didn't like your explanation there, Alex. All right, so next up I believe is ZB's team, correct?
Yep.
All right. So I believe that's Alex, correct?
Yeah.
All right, Alex, take us away with ZB's team.
Yeah, so I mean, just looking at his squad, you know, I think that this is a team, and I'll dive into what I think he did with his draft and keepers and everything like that. You know, I think since he's taken over his team and you look at who he's been keeping, he's been leaning towards optimal upside. You know, I think he hasn't been taking players that are like, you know, keepers that are going in the top, you know, 15 picks of the draft. They're guys that have really high upside, you know, that can potentially hit down the road. And so I think when you put that together with, you know, you just look from top to bottom, again, it kind of similar, you know, when I look at him and Jack's team, it's kind of missing that one stud, right? Like who's his top player? You know, maybe Devontae Adams or Rashad White, like when you look at rankings. And that to me doesn't really scare me. Like we just looked at Taja's squad and we just listed like 5 legit guys that would probably be ahead of who is, you know, top guy here is in these rankings. So when you compare those 2 things, it's hard for me to put him in my top 6. Again, I think he has youth on his side. With his squad. And so, again, you could have a couple players off his bench that end up hitting and, you know, potentially give him that extra depth to, you know, potentially compete later down, you know, later in the season for one of those wild card slots. But, yeah, right now I probably have him outside looking in. I don't think he did really bad in the draft at all. I think he did fine. I just think that, you know, going into it, I don't think he set himself up that well with his 3 keepers. You know, I think there was other players that he could have potentially traded for or made some other moves, and then draft capital wise too. But you know, I think what he did with his actual draft picks, I'm a fan of. But yeah, that's kind of where I have him, kind of outside looking in.
Cobb, anything you got to say about ZB squad?
Yeah, I would agree with Alex. Like he does go upside or like maybe future keeper potential over playing it safe. You know, this is a team I wasn't in love with last year, and it kind of is more the same this year as well. I just, with how good the teams I think ended up this year, this one doesn't really stand out to me too much. I think it'll be a consistent team and like one that could definitely surprise if James Cook, you know, continues his trajectory and like they lean on him more, that, you know, Diggs is gone and that offense should look a little different. But DJ Moore with the first pick, or his first pick, I think he was hoping that one of those guys was going to fall, like the top 5 guys was going to fall. And honestly, it could have happened had I not taken MHJ. Pittman, again, consistent guy. Who I don't remember him doing that well with Richardson. So I don't know. It just doesn't really stand out to me too much. I obviously, like, I know ZB is a great owner. I know he knows his shit. And I this kind of feels like maybe playing for, like, hoping to maybe crapshoot into the playoffs, or like, but more so focusing on like future assets and building up for like a super team or powerful team that, like, in the next few seasons by trading these guys later.
So I'm looking at his numbers with Anthony Richardson. So I guess they only played 1, 2, 3. They only played 4 games with each other last year. And so First game, 8 catches, 97 yards, a touchdown. The second game, 8 catches, 56 yards. Next game, 1 catch, 5 yards. Next game, 5 catches, 52 yards. So, I mean,
Yeah.
nothing overwhelming, I would say. Yeah, so it's interesting you guys both are the same things. I was speaking with someone close to the situation over there and having a very rough day with ZB's squad. They look at their squad. They don't have a home run hitter on their team, and that's kind of one of the things that, like, yeah, you said maybe Adams can be a home run hitter some weeks, but they just don't have one. They're hoping James Cook can become that, but they don't really know. That's the one thing they don't have with the team. Now, be it, maybe Xavier Legette becomes that, maybe Tajay Spears becomes that in their situations, but right now he doesn't really have a home run hitter. He was really happy about DJ Moore, but when I told him that you almost didn't go Marvin Harrison Jr., and Tasia would have gone Jalen Hurts at that first-round pick, he was so mad that didn't happen because he was this close to getting Marvin Harrison Jr. if that had gone that way. The one thing I will say, I think it's a solid team, top to bottom. James Conner off the bench, Jameson Williams could be key. The Detroit didn't add another receiver, so Xavier Legette could be the guy. He's got. If you look at him, he looks like DK. So that there could be something there. I'm still not a James Cook fan. I'm not a believer in James Cook. I think Rachaad White's awesome. I think MBJ is great. The one thing I'll say, that one knock I have on this team, which is not a good knock to have if you want to be a good, and especially in a 6-point passing touchdown league, it's Deshaun Watson. I know Deshaun Watson could go back to being what he was a couple of years ago, and I thought that was going to happen 2 years ago. I thought that was going to happen last year. It didn't. He hasn't looked like Deshaun Watson from Houston in 4 years. So I think at some point we have to say, I don't think that Deshaun Watson's ever coming back again. Each year he gets older. It's like, how's he going to be closer to that guy from of old? That's where I have a big hesitation with this team. And for me, if you don't have a top-tier quarterback in this league, that's a big problem, especially when it's Deshaun Watson, who hasn't even showed flashes of even looking remotely close to what he was. Stafford's a solid quarterback, so if Watson does shit the bed and sucks, at least he has Stafford, a guy who will get you a solid 19 to 20 every week. So at least he got that. I just don't – the quarterback situations where I kind of lose it a little bit, and why I don't have him as a playoff team. It's a shame, too, because he had Joe Burrow and traded him for a bag of chips last year, too. So really it's a shame. What was the trade? What did you trade? An 8th round pick?
Yeah, I think it was 8th and Calvin Ridley for Burrow.
It's not bad. So you trade him 8th and a guy who got drafted in round 3 or round 4. It's not bad. Yeah. But yeah, to see that he had Joe Burrow and now he's started Deshaun Watson, he's going to have a kind of a quarterback carousel. It's kind of upsetting. But yeah, I don't think he's going to vie for pancaking because it's a good team outside of the quarterback position. I think he'll be more of where he was last year, where he was right on the outside of looking into the playoffs, but not that close to the playoffs, but 8 to 7, 8 to 6, I would say, the 8 to 6 range. I would say that's where I have him. So ZB, great draft, good offseason moves. Looking forward to seeing how things play out. Hopefully we're wrong. Hopefully we're wrong about you not making the playoffs. But at least he's not blind to the fact that he's not saying, "Oh, my team's badass." At least he knows it's going to be a trial. It's going to take some time for him to get over that. So ZB. Okay, so next pick I believe is Jahmyr Gibbs. Not Jahmyr Gibbs. ZT.
It should be Roden.
It's Roden.
Yeah.
All right. Big Dave. Dave, and if you're on the chat still, get a name changed. You don't have Tutu anymore.
Does anybody?
I don't think anyone has Tutu, but let's get a name change, Dave. Yeah, I want a catchy name. Let's dog Hotch or something. I think we need pinpoint Hotch. No one's got a Hotch name, which is crazy that no one's got a Hotch name. The guy's won the league 5 times in a row. Let's take him shots at the Hotch, and I want you to do it, Dave. Get him, buddy. Try to prove to the whole league that you're not his Barry. There you go. That's all I got to tell you. All right, so Dave was my guy last year. I rode this guy through thick and thin, even when it was looking bleak. I was like, you know what? Dave's going to come out here and punch somebody in the mouth. He's going to win this game today, this week. And, I rode him all throughout the season last year. I think it was the year where I'm finally going to take a step back from Dave for this year. I love this kid. I'm still going to be rooting for him every week, but I just don't think it's going to be a good year for him. I think we might be looking at one of the Pancake Kings guys. Like guys really vying for the last spot in the league. We have to get through all the teams, but there's a team that kind of startled by, and I know he's going by. I know he was going. Hodge made a joke that like you were following, that Dave was following his like power rankings, like his like draft board and stuff. Because when you drafted Neighbors, for example, which potentially he could be great, but he's not a first round pick. Not this year. You're not going to keep him in the first round. So that was a bit of a reach there. He could be great. I mean, if he pans out this year, then I'm an idiot. I'm wrong. You were right. But first round pick was kind of rough with that one. That was kind of like that part when that happened. I was like, oh shit! Like I got Josh Jacobs at the end of the first round, or at the end of the second round, or beginning of the second round when you went that, because it kind of flipped everyone. Everyone was like, whoa, what happened? It was one of the. Because Dave wasn't in the room, and I'm not trying to shit on Dave. I love Dave. I just want to let Dave know when Neighbors, and he knows how it is. When Neighbors got picked, everybody in the room looked at each other. And when everybody in the room looks at each other on a draft pick, that's when you know you fucked up. Everyone knows that. And Dave's been a part of the look. Like, like what the hell? That just happened? Like, oh yeah, go next. And then come back around to Dalton Kincaid. Yeah, Dalton Kincaid can be key. I'm not high on him. He's still splitting time with Dawson Knox there. And I'm curious to see what their offense looks like without Diggs, without Gabe Davis. I think he might have more of a role as a pass catcher. So he could be key. I know Hodge is high on him. I still think I think he probably could have got him in the third round. I don't think he would have gone in the second round unless, I don't know if somebody was going to do it. I mean, I wouldn't have done it. So those were I kind of like, I'm out on the Neighbors pick. I'm out on the Dalton Kincaid pick. Those two Neighbors, I thought you were going to get him in the second round. I think you probably could have got him in the second round. And then you got like best player available in the first. But I love Josh Allen. I love Jamar Chase. I think DeAndre Swift's pretty key. I thought that was a good pick. I mean, he's the guy over there, and with the way those guys are on the outside, I mean, he might have a really good year. So I do love the DeAndre Swift pick. Nico Collins, they gave him a big contract. Diggs was barely targeted preseason. Nico looks like the guy over there. Tank Dell's, he's a thin guy, so he'll probably get injured a lot. Just like he's still coming off an injury. Chuba Hubbard, solid pick. I mean, Jalen Wright, people are loving him and raving about him in camp so far, so that could be keeper worthy down the road maybe. But look, you're gonna go the way Josh Allen goes. So if Josh Allen and Jamar Chase dominate, you're gonna dominate and be in a lot of games. There's certain things here that your team could have been better, and that's probably why I'm graded so roughly, because the Neighbors pick really threw me off. Threw off the entire league, really, besides Hodge. So that's why I hope it wasn't too harsh. I love you. You're my guy. I hope you're not the Pancake King. we're still going to look at all these other teams to see where you are. But right now I have Dave at around the 12 to 10 range is where I have my guy Dave as of right now. Curious to what your guys' thoughts are on my guy Dave.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I mean, I'm going to go slightly in the opposite direction. I'm a little bit higher on his team than obviously you are. Here's the thing. Like when, in my three categories I've been talking about, I have him right in that middle category, not a playoff lock, but not on the outside looking in. I don't know exactly where he's going to fall in my rankings, but to me, he's going to be close to like in the 6-7 range, like just on the cusp. And the reason being, I mean, when you look at his team, right, I've referenced looking at it from like redraft perspective, you have that curve of like, what's the best possible team you could build in a redraft, and is based off of how they built their team with their keepers and draft picks. Is their team worse than that redraft team? Is it better? Or is it kind of right in the middle, right? If it's better, then that's obviously a clear playoff team. When you look at it, right, Jamar Chase, that's a first-round pick. Josh Allen's going in the second round. Nico's going in the third round. Neighbors is going in the fourth. Kincaid's going, you can go pick by pick. I think it's right there on par with what you could build from a redraft perspective. So anytime you have a team that kind of fits that mold, it's always going to be in the mix. So I don't have this in my, Pancake King kind of watch, because there's, I think, 3 or 4 teams that if you compare it pick by pick, it's on at the opposite end of that curve, meaning that their team is actually worse than what you could build in redraft. So because of that, I have them right there in my 6-7 spot.
You really shocked me there, Alex. Kyle, what do you got to say?
Yeah, I mean, after seeing the team that Yags had last year not get Tomato King, anything can happen. But with that being said, I mean, Roden has Josh Allen, Jamar Chase. You can win a week with just those two people. Obviously, we'll see how Buffalo's offense looks, and I think that's really going to be what determines how Dave's team looks from here on out. The thing that worries me the most is just the depth. Like if one of these guys goes down, or what that last flex spot might look like Chuba Hubbard, I don't think anyone's really worried about that. Neighbors is more of a guy, like you said. I think he's going to be a beast, but is this a team that can wait for Neighbors to develop throughout the season? I think it was really risky. We'll see if it pays off. But you know, if he's able to get a few wins early on, then Neighbors starts clicking. Like who knows? But yeah, I don't think like I like his top talent a lot. It's just the depth that worries me a little bit. But you know, we've seen Roden make runs before, so and I'm I see Nico there too. I like Nico a lot, and yeah, I don't know. It's just like the depth worries me a little bit, but that's about it. But again, he does have rookies that could pick it up.
And also another thing with Neighbors too, he has a really horrible quarterback situation where like they can pull Daniel Jones at any time during the season, and then where Drew Lock is going to be throwing him the ball. That's where I'm like, and also too, he's not going to keep him. He's a first round guy. He's probably not going to be kept. So that's where I stand on it. But I like that Roden's big on Neighbors though. I do like that he's very he's backing his pick here. So I do like that he retracted his Dalton Kincaid. He said he regrets that one. That's fine. But look, I'm rooting for Dave. It's not like I'm rooting for him to be bottom tier. There's certain things he did during the draft that I probably wouldn't have done necessarily. But I'm not the back-to-back champion like Hotch, and I wouldn't have done pretty much what he did this draft. We'll get to him later though. Okay, so next pick I believe is ZT. Alex, take us away with your guy.
Yeah, so if you take a look at his roster, I mean, just looking at it right off the bat, this is probably in my top tier personally, kind of the bottom of my top tier, for a couple of reasons. Because when you look at it, he's top heavy, but I think he's got a little bit better depth than a guy like Roden. Right, like when you just look at his top four, Lamar's a top 3 quarterback, Amon-Ra's a top 3 receiver, Gibbs is going in like the top 4, top 5 running backs, and then Kelsey's a top 3, tight end as well. So it's very top heavy, and I actually like his depth. You look at Ayuk, Najee with Jalen Warren out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. I'm not a huge Javonte guy this year, but still Deontay, Brian Robinson, if you look at his stats at the end of last year, I think he finished in like the top 5 the last, after the bye week. And I think where, obviously with Eckler coming, I think Eckler's just going to take over that role that, that was obviously, vacated there as that kind of, Antonio Gibson, type of player. So I don't think that's going to really dip his production. So I just think he's got the depth. Don't think he dominated the draft in any sense. I just think he went into it in a pretty good spot with, obviously Lamar, St. Brown, and Gibbs. I mean, those are 3 of the better keepers. When you just look face value without the picks, every 12 keepers, you don't even take into consideration what tender they're in, just the ranking of their players. I think he came into this with some of the better keeper options. And so for that reason, again, I don't know exactly where he's going to fall. Like it's probably closer to like 4 or 5 for me. But I probably have him on the inside looking out.
Dude, we are not seeing eye to eye on like the last 2. We are like not eye to eye at all. I think this team, the last 3 flexes of this team, yes, Ayuk, he's good, but right now we don't know what team he's going to play for. He doesn't want to play for San Francisco. He doesn't want to play for New England. I don't know what he wants to do. Najee Harris sucks. Let me just say that. Javonte Williams I was reading a report last week that they might cut him. I mean, there's a potential of that. He might be or not cut. They might trade him. So that's why a lot of people are high on McLuhan. Deontay Johnson looks all. I mean, he can't catch a lick in practice. I've heard. Bryce Young also sucks. Brian Robinson solid. Khalil Shakur solid. Rico Dowdle solid. I mean, outside of Amon-Ra, Lamar, and Jahmyr Gibbs, who's already battling a hamstring injury, let's just throw that out there. And Kelsey's key. The three flexes there are just giant question marks. And when we're talking at a team and we're looking at their flexes, and they're all like, let me put you this way. I think Roden's flexes are better than ZT's flexes. And I just shat on Roden here for an hour over here. I like Roden's flexes more than I like ZT's flexes. This team is not good. This is by far one of ZT's worst teams that he's had in a while, in my opinion, at least. Cobb, what are your thoughts? You're going to break the tie here on how you feel about this.
I mean, I'm going to start off by saying I don't know I didn't hear the Javonte Williams stuff. I'm a fan of him. I think he's going to be one of the bounce back guys. He was actually one that I was hoping there was this run in the draft where I think there was like 4 picks before me. I had Javonte Williams, JSN, and Brian Thomas as like my next guys up. All 3 went. But that's how it goes. And I don't know. I am not that big of a hater on this team. I just don't think that ZT did as well as he could have in the draft outside of that. Like Najee doesn't excite me at all. Someone said that Najee Harris runs like he's wearing jeans, and I've never been able to unsee that. And it's like one of the funniest things ever, but it's also true. And the thing with ZT is like, I think Lions offense is going to be great, but every time they have a bad day, he's losing that week. And I think that's extremely risky. He's had Lamar Jackson. He's been on the Lamar Jackson train since he came to the league, and like hasn't done anything with him. So it's hard to keep giving him the benefit of the doubt that, hey, he has a good quarterback. So while I don't hate this team, I don't know. There's just like, there's more I got to see. At some point, I've been saying this, it seems like for the last 3 years, that ZT needs to cash in on his future picks at some point. He keeps postponing, he keeps punting. And I never get it because he gets teams that look like this. And it's like a very weird middle of the pack. Could go either way, but never does. Like, I don't know. I guess I didn't break the tie because I was right between both of you. But that just shows how like all over the place this team is and usually is.
Yeah. So ZT can pretty much go anywhere from Pancake King to apparently 4th in the playoffs. Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, it's funny because like ZT used to be like a really good drafter, and like he's fallen off. I think a little bit. I don't know if Crystal's like fucking with his head or anything, but like this is just a bad drafter, man.
Yeah, I don't know if I have him all the way up at 4 after looking at this. I was, just looking at being reminded about some of the other teams, but I do probably have him when everything shakes out, like at the 6th seed. So I don't have him in that tier that can compete for a bye week. I don't think he's quite there yet after taking a second look. But I do have him right on the cusp, kind of like a coin flip, whether he makes it or not, kind of like 7-7 type of year. So we'll have to see exactly where he shakes out my rankings. So that's kind of where I got him.
All right. Okay, so next team we're going to go with is Stu, correct?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so Cobb, take us away with the Stu's squad.
Yeah, so Stu's squad was one I think we talked about on the pre-draft show that I was really excited for his draft. I was kind of making calls for him to make moves to get early. I understand that's easier said than done, especially in this league, but I think he had a real shot to make one of those super teams. And I don't think he missed on that, but I think there are some interesting choices. I mean, I really like Anthony Richardson at quarterback. I think that's a high value player, like a high ceiling play for Stu, but it is, he's got injured so easily and so quickly in his rookie season, and hopefully they shook that out of him. But I think that was part of what made him so good at quarterback, is he was willing to run. He was willing to like get those extra yards. And like, if he continues to do that, who knows how long he'll last. Obviously he has Goff on his bench, who I could honestly see starting for him because he does have that stack. But I think Anthony Richardson is where I think I would have liked to see Stu get Jalen Hurts, like he had talked about. I know he was really on the fence with taking him high. And I think Jalen Hurts got taken at the end of the second. We're talking about teams wanting to take him in the first, and the team that ended up jumping on him was Taja's, and you see how Taja's team ended up. And I think that's a big difference. But again, Anthony Richardson could tear it up like he was before he got hurt, and that this could all be moot. But I like Stu's team. I think this is one of the top half teams. Again, we'll get to our rankings. I like Puka a lot. I do think Cooper Kupp starts to kind of come back into relevancy. You know, we saw Alex take him at the end of the first. I do like Cooper Kupp this season. I don't think he's going to be what he was last year. I mean, obviously injuries could be a concern, but I think it's more of a shared receiving there. But Kyron Williams, I was big on coming in at great value, but like every time I would look him up, like people were pretty down on him, which kind of surprised me. And I guess just based off of how the Rams use him, they got, I mean, it seems like it could be a crowded backfield potentially because they don't want to commit to one guy. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out. I do, again, value-wise is fantastic. Same with Laporta. That should be a top 2 tight end for this season. Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Kamara. This is where I start to kind of have some question marks. I mean, I like them. It's kind of like a high floor, low ceiling plays for me. I could see DK taking up, but that's a crowded receiver court. Like you have Lockett, you have JSN who could take over as the number 1 there this season. Mike Evans is a guy that I think people count out every year. So is this finally the year that he drops off? Maybe. It's just not a risk I wanted to take because of how old he was. And Kamara too, like how long can he really keep doing it? He didn't really look as great as he did last year. I know Dash, I think you had him last year, and you probably have some comments about that. But then there's like Calvin Ridley, Jalen Warren, who just got hurt, and like the depth just isn't there for me. I do, again, Stu top half team. I was just expecting more coming out of this draft, which is where my hesitancy is coming from.
Yeah, he drafted Kamara and Mike Evans. I had both of them on my team last year. I got Evans in the 3rd round. I think he drafted him in the 1st round. I had Kamara around 4. He drafted him in round 2, I believe. So, had better value last year, I guess. Yeah, Kamara. If Kamara wasn't getting like his 3 or 4 catches for 10 yards, like Kamara's numbers were much better because of like those bullshit little checkdowns that Carr was throwing. I mean, he didn't look like the Kamara that we that won Cobb championships. It's not that same Kamara anymore. So interesting pick there. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Anthony Richardson. Guy's barely played quarterback. He only played in 4 games last year. Got hurt. I think Goff's going to be starting a lot more than we think, like Cobb mentioned. So it's not a bad move to start with Goff. Yeah, it's just we'll see. I mean, I think it's a good enough team to get him in the playoffs at least. But we're not talking about a championship. I don't think the teams that win championships generally have a surefire quarterback. I would say a guy who's going to get you 30s or 40s. Anthony Richardson, we don't really know much about what he's going to do this year. And there's too much of an unknown variable with him, which is why I'm kind of hesitant on it. So we'll see. I mean, I like the team. I think top to bottom solid. Depth, not the biggest fan of it, but I remember I was like, Curtis Samuel, Jesus, the guy's still in the league. He was like, oh yeah, the number 1 receiver in Buffalo. Oh, that was key. I always love doing those types of things during the draft, But yeah, Gus Edwards starting back. I mean, he's going to timeshare. Jalen Warren was the starting back, or not starting back. I mean, he's better than Najee. So when he gets back, that can be key. Calvin Ridley could be all right. I mean, he's looking great in camp. So there's a lot of unknowns here, but he's got some pieces here. I like Shaheed. I think the kickoff rule is going to be great with him. The return yards. We're going to see about 100 to 150 return yards a game. I know Hodge was poo-pooing that, but I think that's definitely something there. So it's a solid team. I think we're looking at maybe a playoff spot, but if you factor in the election year aspect of it, we might be on the outside looking in slightly. But we'll get to that later on the where he falls. But yeah,
I'm kind of in the same spot you guys are. I mean, I think right now, I think I have him maybe 1 spot ahead of ZT. So if I put ZT at 7, then he's at 6. If I end up putting ZT at 6, then he's at 5. Like he's kind of right at that cusp. I think that overall, I do agree. On all my mocks, I have him taking Hurts in the second round. I still think he should have done that. Even with that, though, I am an Anthony Richardson fan, and I do think he got Anthony Richardson way later than I ever expected him to go. I anticipated him going within the top 3 rounds, and I think he got him like the 5th or something like that.
Yeah.
So he ended up falling. So it was, he ended up being able to capitalize on that, that value there. So kind of, I think it played well for him. I think Calvin Ridley's going to have a fantastic year in Tennessee. I think he really is going to have a solid year. So him coming off his bench, I think just with the depth that he has, he's probably on the inside track there. But again, I don't think this is a team that's going to end up getting a bye week. This to me looks like an 8-6 team that probably gets in, as like the 5th or 6th seed. I just don't think he has like the number one stud, that CMC type of guy, that Bijan guy that you can just rely on a 20 every single week from one of your RB or, top receivers. So I think he's just missing that to be a bye week team. But yeah, I probably got him like 8-6 this year.
Yeah. I was going to say, quick other note. I mean, obviously this is a hindsight thing because he took Anthony Richardson in the 5th, but he had a chance to take Pittman in the 2nd too. And obviously that's kind of planning kind of far ahead, but it would have been nice to see like a stack or something, really, to have something that, like what I was talking about, really separates you for within a week. So.
Well, what that tells you is that he had no intention of taking Anthony Richardson. It was where it just fell to a point like I need a quarterback, good value here based on the rankings. That's where that's probably where it was. It wasn't like one of the things where he was like targeting Anthony Richardson. It fell into his lap. He said, yeah, I'll take him, I guess. I mean, he drafted Goff, and did he draft another quarterback too? He drafted Kirk Cousins too. So I mean, you could tell a lot by a guy how they feel about their quarterback they drafted, depending on how many quarterbacks they draft. And he drafted 2 others, and not like end of the draft type guys in like round like 10 to like 14. So you can tell he's not really sold on Anthony Richardson, which is kind of weird since drafted him in the top 5 rounds. So poor guy. Love you, Stu, if you're in the chat, buddy. So next, I believe, is Adam, and that is Cobb. Take us away, buddy.
So obviously we all know, or everyone should know, that he was drafting from a wedding this year, which is difficult in its own right, and that's definitely something that can come up and completely screw your draft over and put you in a really shitty position. Adam also came into this draft with extremely clean draft board, as he does every year. And I think that's one thing that has always been a knock on Adam, is not making moves when he could. But like, with that being said, for drafting from a wedding, I do like his team, or at least his starters for the most part. We see Stu just said he was going for Dak. The reason he missed on it was because of Adam. Adam did get Dak. That's his guy. Obviously, he's a Cowboys fan, so it's going to be fun for him to watch. AJ Brown and Christian McCaffrey, those are those difference makers that we were talking about, that those guys could win you a week so easily. Christian McCaffrey last year was basically an automatic 20 plus. AJ Brown had some, I think he had some down weeks, obviously, like with yelling at Jalen Hurts and stuff, but like seemed to get it, and he got it together. I think he's in for a big year as well. And Kyle Pitts and Drake London, I know there's a lot of question marks with that Atlanta offense. I know there's definitely some risk. I think I'm on the side that is more excited about that offense than most. I understand the worry there with just how they are, but this is where I'm kind of betting on the talent. I know Kyle Pitts has been down. Like, everyone's like, oh, Kyle Pitts is the guy. Like, if the talent's going to show, the talent's going to show. I don't think he's really gotten a chance to, because of like the Desmond Ridder, the Marcus Mariota type that has been quarterback. When he had a decent quarterback, Matt Ryan, he tore it up. And that's kind of what I expect to happen if Kirk Cousins is good to go for the beginning of the season, and Drake London as well. Like, these are super talented players that I think, looking back on it, I know people are like, I don't really like Drake London at 5th. I'm a fan. I like both of these guys. I think they could be high value guys, where Adam got him. Obviously, Drake London was a keeper, but I'm excited about it. But that's where my rankings might differ from you two depending on how you feel with the Atlanta offense. And then Kenneth Walker, I think everyone was super worried about Charbonnet last year. It seems like that kind of cooled off. And Charbonnet is more of like a passing down kind of guy. I do like Kenneth Walker a lot. I just don't know how that Seattle offense is going to look, which is why like I'm not super excited about him. But I think he should still be a nice like last flex guy. Chase Brown. We heard Dash earlier mention that I was surprised he took Chase Brown over Zach Moss. And that's kind of a like coin flip, like who knows how that's going to work out. And that's kind of where the rest of Adam's team goes. It's like, who knows how that backfield's going to work out. He has Tony Pollard, who's obviously competing with Tajay Spears, Blake Corum, who's competing with Kyron, who we just highlighted on Stu's team, Tyrone Tracy in the Giants backfield, Jaleel McLaughlin with Javon. There's a lot of crowded backfields. I think, didn't he also, he drafted Nick Chubb as well. And like, I think Adam's taking the Pergolesi approach where he's just investing in all of these running backs and weird backfields and hoping that at least one of them hits. Because if he does, it's going to be a super solid team. So I think I'm higher on Adam's team than most are. Based off of that, I do think he has some really shaky bench issues coming up if these guys don't win out. Because I would say most of these guys are underdogs to win out that backfield. So I think that's super risky. And but with that being said, with Adam drafting from a wedding, I think he did a good job.
Yeah, and his audio didn't work at the draft too, so I mean, that also doubly. But I will say, give him credit; he still was trying to make moves and do trades throughout the draft. Him and Hodge were talking pretty much. Made a trade with you. He was trying to make some willing a deal. Yeah. I don't like that he has two Falcons guys, as Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts is. I think I'm kind of done with Kyle Pitts. I'm really tired of the hype. I don't know how he still continues to get hype. And I think if he doesn't do well with Kirk Cousins, I think people may actually like say, okay, yeah, he had a good quarterback. He sucked. Yeah, and I think that's where we could probably put this baby to bed after this season. I hope to God, because I'm tired of hearing about Kyle Pitts. And I thought he kind of drafted him pretty early too, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was the third or fourth round.
Yeah, it's really early.
End of the third.
Especially when you have Drake London on the team too. I just think that's like honestly, if I'm Stu, you want Dak, Stu? You got Kirk Cousins. Trade him Kirk Cousins like a 2026 like 7th round pick. You can get Dak in your squad, buddy. Chase Brown's. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the nose here, man. Talking about the last flex and the bench spots from Chase Brown, Tony Pollard, Tyrone Tracy, Jaleel McLaughlin. These are all guys who are like the number 2s in their backfield. And I know it's a running back committee league now, but that's what we're banking on. We're banking on one of those guys becoming the guy 1 week when they're out. I mean, I think it's rough. It's rough for Adam here in this last flex spot. This is definitely going to hurt him in the ranks. I had him higher, but after looking at this, I think I have him lower now. And it's a shame too, because I believe it's his birthday this week coming up. I know it's in August at some point, but it's a shame.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same spot as you. I honestly, because I hadn't done as much research, and I knew obviously he had CMC and AJ Brown, and Yahoo loves this team. If you look at the projections for Yahoo, they have him as like the top team. It's crazy. But yeah, honestly, before I went through this, I was pretty sure he was going to be my 4 slot. But looking at this now, doing these rankings is going to be tough. I mean, there's a shot I might even have him at like 7 in these rankings. Looking at this, maybe he's kind of like right there. And for me, the reason being, when you look at these rankings, I think you started off with CMC and AJ Brown. That is elite, right? And I know a lot of people are high on Drake London. I'm personally not, but in some of the rankings they have him going in like the late 2nd round. Like he starts it off with a bang, but then when you look at it, it's like Chase Brown, like he's usually on most people's bench in a redraft. Dak isn't a top 8, quarterback. I think he obviously is, a very solid starting quarterback, but he's not one of those Lamar Mahomes type of guys. You just start looking at it. To me, this is my thought. If CMC has the same year he had last year, this is a team that makes the playoffs as a 5 or 6 seed. If CMC re-aggravates this calf and he starts missing some games, this is a team I genuinely think could be looking at some pancakes. I mean, that's really where I stand with this team. He's one player away. Everything hinges on that one player. CMC stays healthy. I think this team is like a 6 seed. CMC gets hurt. I got this in my bottom 2 or 3.
I mean, this was the story for him last year. I mean, his team wasn't the best. I mean, when McCaffrey was getting like 30s and 40s, carrying him every week. So it's like, I mean, and he had Purdy, who really panned out for him too. So that really helped. But yeah, no, it's not the best team. It's not one of his best that he's had in a while. So, but I feel like he always had like one shitty flex on his team last year. I remember that was one thing I always said, like, dude, it's a pretty terrible team. Yeah, I'm rooting for the kid though. But yeah, I think we're in alignment here, Alex, on that. All right, so now our next one is Cobb, and I believe he's talking about Mr. Second Place and me.
Yeah. Man, my mouth's getting dry. Three players in a row. So starting off, I mean, obviously we know Dash's history, getting to championships a lot, consistent playoff appearance, and just off the start, I don't think it really changes this year. I think what I'm looking at this roster, it's a lot of talent that started falling in the draft that kind of fell into Dash's lap. I think he had a fair amount of question marks because he didn't have a first. He had invested in Hollywood Brown, and there was a real risk in which like this team would be pretty shitty. But I mean, a lot of talent dropped, and that's where I think I kind of like your good drafting and then also able to capitalize on players that fall to you and not passing over these guys. And we don't really need to talk much about Mahomes. I mean, #1 quarterback in the league, especially in the 6 passing touchdown league. That's probably one of the best assets you can get, if not the best asset you can get. That's a guy that just wins you weeks on his own. Debo's interesting. Obviously, like he looked, it's the story with Ayuk. How is that offense going to look if Ayuk is traded, if he stays the same, or if he stays with the 49ers. Obviously, I like Debo as a talent. Injuries can always be concerned with him because of how rough he runs, but I think it's a great player. Josh Jacobs is a guy that fell down. I'm not really sure how he'll look in that Green Bay offense with A.J. Dillon and like Jordan Love maybe throwing it as much as I expect him to. But with that being said, that Green Bay offense is going to be a huge passing attack, which I think that's what most teams are going to come into and defend the pass. So Josh Jacobs can be a guy that capitalizes on that. I like, Dallas Goedert, Joe Mixon, David Montgomery, Keenan Allen, just all like solid guys. No one that I think will disappoint. I think that kind of keeps your floor pretty high, at least relative to the other teams. And then this is definitely a team where, depending on how injuries shape out, and then how like specifically with Hollywood Brown, like that is very much what I think will dictate what seed you would be in the playoffs going forward. Because I do have you as a top half team. I do think it does hinge on that stack. We'll see if he comes back after week 1 or if it's going to be more multi-week injury where kind of takes away a few big weeks for you where you're going to have to kind of scrape out some wins. But like top to bottom, I mean, it's a really solid team. Obviously with Mahomes, like you can't count out, and then you're kind of hoping that stack comes back sooner rather than later. But like Addison, I really like. Mostert is a guy that I think people discounted just because of the A-chain hype. Mostert was still getting a decent amount of carries and looked good doing it within that Miami offense. Lockett's a guy that, again, we kind of talked about the top part of this too, where a lot of these guys are forgotten players that are consistent. They've been consistent fantasy players, and I think that's where you can start separating yourselves, where especially when bye weeks start to hit, you're going to have these solid replacements. You're not going to be leaning on this, second running back on a team to fill in these holes. I think that's what's going to start separating you. So, overall, definitely top half team for me. Maybe not as many playmakers as you used to have, but, Hawkinson too. That's a key tight end I missed. So it's all going to be about how your early season looks based off of your seeding for me.
Alex?
Yeah, I have this squad right now. So looking at this, so when I do these rankings, I'm starting to kind of put together these tiers. I don't know if I have this squad in my top 3, but I have it in my playoffs. I have this, I think, between 4, 5, or 6. And when I look at this, like here's my two thoughts on it. I think I have like three thoughts. One, again, looking back, I don't know if you have anyone on your team that is going like a top 12 picks in a redraft. Like you don't have like a dynamite. Obviously, I know Mahomes. Mahomes is obviously your dynamite guy, but I'm just talking from a flex perspective. You don't have like that running back, receiver tight end guy that's like blowing it up like a Bijan or Brees Hall, something like that. But I think that second tier type of player, like obviously the Debos, the Josh Jacobs, like when you look at that, I think you actually might have the most tier 2 guys on your entire out of anyone in the entire league. And that's not a negative thing. Like having that type of depth, I think, especially when we start, we're talking about like Adams, Stu, and ZT's team, and like all and Yaglu's team, like all this kind of murky like 6 to kind of 8 spot where we just anyone can do it. Having that much depth, I think kind of elevates you to to basically be in a better spot than those teams. The other thing, which I think is interesting, is that you have a lot of players that are going to new situations. So like Jacobs, this is his first year in Green Bay. Joe Mixon is his first year in Houston. Keenan Allen is first year, obviously, there with the Bears, and then Hollywood Brown first year with the Chiefs. Like, you have a lot of this unknown, and that can go really one of two ways. Like either they just don't pan out in that situation, or they drastically exceed people's expectations and they're a perfect fit and end up blowing up. And so like you have that boomer bust potential with the added in depth. And I think in general that typically is better for a team to be in that spot. And obviously you have Mahomes, who single-handedly is going to win you, 1 or 2 extra games a year. So I kind of got you in like maybe the 4 spot.
Yeah, it's probably one of my more unique teams I've had in a while, where like I don't have like a lot of like A+ talent, like you said, like a lot of home run hitters. It's a lot of like tier 2 guys, which I was lucky that a lot of these guys fell to me. Josh Jacobs was being one of them. Joe Mixon, I figured he was going to be there. Keenan Allen fell to me like round 11, which is I believe he was a 10th round tender going into this draft, and this guy had 100 catches last year. And I know there's reports of him looking fat, or he's like 30 pounds overweight or whatever they said, but like watching Hard Knocks, he doesn't look like he's 40 pounds overweight. I mean, I don't even know where those reports come from. Jordan Addison, I was surprised that he fell as much as he did, especially in this league where everyone values the rookies and the sophomore guys. I didn't. That was crazy to me that he fell so much. Yeah, and Mostert, another guy who I'm not surprised he fell. Usually aging type older running backs people don't like overlook in this league, so I wasn't surprised by that. I think Demon also fell too, a little bit further than I thought he would. I forgot where he went, but I remember it was at that moment I was going between Demont and McLaurin, and I went with Demont.
Third,
okay. So yeah, that
was last year, which is crazy because he overperformed.
Yeah, absolutely. Why I don't know why people, and I guess being on a committee, some people don't really value that as well. But I would say the Hockenson pick was probably one of my favorite picks of the draft. I mean, where I drafted tight end, that's not where you can get a tier 1 tight end. And TJ Hockenson is a tier 1 tight end. However, the injury problem, that's going to be something to look at. I mean, I don't know when he's going to come back. They say maybe week 4, week 5, which is great. I mean, I had Dallas Goedert, who's a good fill-in until he comes back. But I think that's something that we talk about playoff stretches. That's something that could really come back to get to win me some matchups, to having another guy like that in my lineup. So I was really excited about that. All right, so now we're coming to the man of the hour, the man of the last 4 years, and the man that everyone in the league will be happy to see him fall off a cliff this season, and that is Matt Hodge. Make Hodge great again with my fucking duck face selfie for some reason. I still don't understand why that is his avatar, but nonetheless. All right, so Matt Hodge comes into this this year trading away a lot of his early round picks. He stockpiled a shit ton of picks over the next year. Next year, he has 3 first-round picks. He traded Tyreek Hill, Jonathan Taylor, Brees Hall for CeeDee Lamb in the offseason. CeeDee Lamb is the only... Okay, CeeDee Lamb is the second... is one of like a few guys who are not rookies on his team. His starting lineup right now, he has Bucky Irving, who is like a going to be like a third down back maybe in Tampa Bay. Bucky Irving was a guy I believe I that went undrafted in our dynasty league, where I drafted him in the late third in our dynasty league. But Hotch obviously has gotten the itch of his dynasty league, and he's carrying it over into the keeper league because he drafted all rookies in this draft. His team is a team that, I mean, he's banking on these rookies panning out this year, and I think they may at some point, but I think we're looking at an 0-5 start for Hotch right now. And I had Dave as the worst team in this league, and it's not. This is the worst team in the league. This is a team that's going to get shellacked this year. This is a guy who, well, we'll get to it later, but this is Jalen Waddle and CeeDee Lamb, great. After that, it's a giant question mark, and it's giant growing pains. I think he needs to name his team Growing Pains because this year, I mean, he's going to have growing pains with this squad because, I mean, Xavier Worthy, yeah, I'm excited about him. I don't think he's going to be an every week guy. Romeo Odunze, he's on a team with 3 other weapons on it. Like, I mean, he's a rookie also. I think he caught a touchdown last week where his feet were out of bounds. Like, I mean, he wouldn't even know where he was in the field. There's going to be a lot of that. Brock Bowers, yes, he's great, but I don't think he's going to be the guy now. I mean, Alex is a Raiders fan. He was even saying that. Bucky Irving is that's off the charts bad. I don't even think that he's like going to be on like any team in a redraft league. I don't think he's going in redraft leagues. Caleb Williams, I think is great. That's fun. I think that's one of the better picks he had in this draft. I think he probably could have got him a little later. And his bench is all rookies too, besides Justin Herbert. So this is a bad team. This is a team that is probably willingly going to take the pancakes. He must because I mean, he went all rookies in this draft, besides Waddle and CeeDee Lamb. So yeah, this is pancakes for Hotch, and I hope to God he is the pancake king. It'll be the first ever a guy goes from championship to pancakes in a year, and I think that's what we're looking at in this window here. So that is my view on Hotch's little cocky draft, an arrogant draft that he had on Saturday. That's what that is. So, Cobb?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely rough. I think this is the thing is I still don't hate it as much as I hated like Yag's team last year, which is hilarious. Like, it's just like you never know what can happen. I think a lot of it's going to come to like maybe Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze that's a stack like right out the gate. I don't think that happens, but I'm very much this is the bottom tier team for me. Bucky Irving, like you said, he drafted another running back somewhere. Did he got Brooks too as well, didn't he? Oh, he's on. Okay. Jesus, dude. And then like I liked where he got JSN. I mean, here's the thing: he has a shit ton of pieces that he can flip, and obviously Hotch is a trade maniac. He made 5 or 4 during the draft itself, and then it was obviously the biggest trader in the offseason. I heard he's already looking at flipping Jaden Daniels. So who knows what this team could look like just like 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. It could be completely different where he's just flipping assets and just loading up for next year. Or, I mean, maybe it becomes this year, depending on what people are willing to part with for some of these guys. So, but that being said, yeah, I mean, it's just like, I don't really know what this team is going to do within like the beginning of the year. Maybe it looks really good at the end of the year, but as things stand without him making moves, this is a bottom team for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. As we've been talking, I've been kind of going through. I think I have a solid top 3 and I have a solid bottom 3, and I've been kind of putting together right now who I'm going to put between 4 to 9. And you know that's up in the air, but I'll tell you what's not up in the air where I have Hotch on these rankings. He's solidly at the bottom of that last tier. I don't think he's gonna, even really be in the conversation much for wild card with the squad he has. And quite honestly, I don't think he cares. I think his whole plan was to gain assets that he can hopefully, like he's crossing his fingers that he hits on, the next Jamar Chase and and Justin Jefferson type of keeper tender and like that 5th, 6th round with some of those guys that he was able to acquire. And he's hoping he can go into next year with all those studs. And I think if he ends up eating waffles this year, I mean, I don't think he's that upset. He's won this league 5 times, and then he gets the 101, right? So like someone like Bijan probably going to get sent back next year, right? Like Marvin Harrison, like people probably aren't going to use their first, to keep one of these guys. So he's going to be, if he can hit on these picks, he's going to be in a great spot next year. And I think that's his intention. So yeah, I think it's pretty safe to have him in the Waffle King running.
Pancake King. We're supposed to buy IHOP here, buddy.
Pancake. IHOP. That's right. Yeah, he's in the Pancake King the entire year, and I think he's completely comfortable with that.
Yes, I'm seeing Roden here. Come next year, Hosh will be dangerous. Yes, you're right, Dave. He will be dangerous. Maybe he might like the rookie class next year, though, and want to draft all the rookies with his 3 first-round picks. I don't know. But let's all make a pact here. Let's not help the guy. Okay, the guy's buried. The guy's let him wallow in this misery of all rookie team that he has here. I'm rooting so hard against all these rookies. I want Hodge to be like dead last so badly. The way he talks about now you bring the trophy to the draft. I mean, what is it? Who does this guy think he is? So I think I'm going to enjoy this. It may be a 1-year thing, and it might come back after this year and dominate the league again. But I'm going to enjoy this ride. I'm going to enjoy this 0-5 start he's about to have. I'm really excited about this, to be quite honest with you. I was rooting for Caleb Williams. Now I'm not rooting for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, I hope he sucks balls this year because I want Hodge to eat pancakes. I want it badly. So, so that's where I'm at here. Tasia, his name got to be something dynasty related. 1 reason being all of his rings. 2 is that his roster is like a dynasty drafted team. Man, yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Double entendre. Let's go.
Ooh, double entendre, Kale God.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're gonna get to the top 6 rankings. We'll start with the Pancake King rankings, just because that's the thing. And of course, Pancake King rankings are sponsored by IHOP, the home of the stack. You guys, obviously, we're almost close to pumpkin season. It's Halloween season coming up here. Field of Screams is coming around the corner. Halloween costumes around the corner. But of course, pumpkin pancakes are around the corner, and there's only one place to go get them. That's at IHOP. So that's our sponsor here. So we're going to toss it to our commercial. Yep, the stack is back in the fantasy league. The BL Plus is back. So we're going to begin with our Pancake King rankings. So with this, we'll go from 7 to 12. Each of us will say our 7. Each of us will say our 8. And each of us will say our 9, and so on. So we'll be fast with this one. So my 7 spot, it's going to go to the guy who probably has the worst third flex. And a guy was surprised. I had him at 4. I dropped him all the way down after doing this and reviewing the teams. I have A. Millie as my 7th spot. I think it's going to be a tough go for A. Millie this year. I think it's not a tough go. It means he's going to be narrowly out of the playoffs. McCaffrey's going to try to will him to victory some weeks, and it'll happen. Some weeks it won't. But I think Adam is on the outside looking in for this really early Pancake King projections. Cobb?
I'm going to preface this by saying my 5 through 8 are so close, and this is probably going to be changed after week 1 pretty quickly. But my 7th spot it's going to be ZT. I think I was a little hard on I've been trying to motivate the kid for forever. We talked about the motivational squeeze on prior shows, and I think he needs it. Because I'm just tired of this middle of the pack stuff. ZT, I can see you being a playoff team. I just want to see it. I want to see you come back and start kicking some ass. I know you did it last year, and then we had some issues in the playoffs, which really showed that maybe you weren't ready for it. But I have ZT just based off of the Lamar, Amon-Ra, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah,
so my 7. So just like Cobb said, when I was doing these rankings, I'm pretty. I like top 3 and bottom 3, but 4 through 9 for me, it's really a crapshoot. I think the difference between the 4 and who I have at 9 it isn't much at all. Like I think all those teams are it's gonna be very competitive this year for who makes the playoffs. With that being said, I do also have Adam at my 7. I just think that he has too much reliance on Christian McCaffrey, and McCaffrey is, he's like turning 30 in the next year, and he's ready dealing with this lingering calf injury. And I've been a longtime McCaffrey owner, and we all know what happens. His track record when he has an injury that starts, that happens early on in the year, it almost always he almost always re-injures it. So having that already happen in the preseason, plus his age and knowing his track record, if CMC gets hurt, it can completely put him almost at, I don't know if he can be past Hodge's team, but it literally puts him down in my bottom 2 or 3 instantly. And so because he has that type of leverage on him, I have him on the outside looking in. I got him at the 7th seed.
All right, so now we go to the 8th spot. My 8th spot is my guy, Lil J, who's in the comments right now, saying the stack is back, should be Yags' new team name. Not a bad team name, to be quite honest with you. And the history behind that name, pretty key, because Barry had the Stackers, and now Yagler's got the Stackers. So I like that. But Pancake King rankings, number 8, I have Lil J. We talked about it earlier. Doesn't have a lot of home run hitters on his team. Didn't have a first-round pick. Not his fault. No one's knocking him for that. I mean, he did what he could. And Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray action. It's not the best quarterback situation. It's not bad. But I think Isaiah Pacheco's key. It's just not – there's 6 other teams better than that, to be quite honest with you. So, yeah, I have my guy Jack at number 8. Cobb?
Yeah, number 8, I have a team that again, all these rankings are super close right now, that I hope makes the playoffs. I just don't think that the in-season management will be ready for it. I'm going to put Yags at number 8. I think he's the only team that has a keeper that isn't a starter on his team right now, which also could just speak to how good his draft was, which is totally fair. I think his receiving core is really good. I think a lot leans on how Jordan Love performs and how if Derrick Henry can score a touchdown that week. And if Love has a down week and Henry doesn't get a touchdown, I think that team, I don't know, pretty destined to lose that a given week. But I like the shape that this team is in. I'm not ready to put it in the playoffs.
Wow. Alex, who is your?
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. I got Yags in my 8th spot right now. I just think again, I was just looking at every single team, and really it's so close. Like I actually like what he's put together. Again, I think, but for me, I had him between 5 to 8 when I was shaking everything out. And honestly, like if you were to tell me that it was like one of you two that were the owner of that team, like that was your roster, and knowing what you guys are capable of as owners, I probably would have had this team at like 6. But I just don't trust him yet as an owner. And when you're that close, like it's a coin flip between, someone's a 5 or an 8, when, even though there is kind of, seems like there's a big difference, there really isn't at this point in the season, especially when we haven't had a single game. We don't know, who's getting favored in different schemes and offenses. For that reason, just going off my gut and not fully trusting him as an elite owner yet, can happen. He's got to prove it. I have him at my 8th spot.
You guys really doubting Yags. It's really disgusting. You guys are pathetic people, I would say. I hope Yags is watching this, and if not, I'm going to show it to him so he knows what kind of scumbags we have on the show. But Yags, I got your back, buddy. You won't hear your name in the Pancake King rankings. Next one I have at number 9. I have ZB here. I'm just going to put it plainly. It's an all-around solid team. Flexes are fine. Everything's fine. Just no home run hitters. And you have Deshaun Watson as your starting quarterback. I don't think I really need to say much more than that. Like the team is fine, but it's anchored by Deshaun Watson as your starting quarterback. And you're going to rely on that. That's not going to get it done. And if you don't have that yet, Stafford is going to get you a 19-20. There's really a limit to this team, and it's a team that's going to be a 9 spot. Not Pancake King territory, not Pancakes territory, but more so like right in the middle of pancakes to playoffs, and that's where I see this team's really, really in the middle. Cobb?
Yeah, in my 9th spot, I have Roden. I think that he has the top profile guys that the teams below him do not, with Josh Allen and Jamar Chase. I think this is just kind of betting on like Nico Collins, Kincaid, and then I don't know. Neighbors could be useful. Like if just 2 of those 3 hit, I think Roden's going to be a tough out on a given week just because of how. I mean, I think he could have a high ceiling. I know there's a lot of questions around the depth specifically, but it's kind of similar to what I've been saying with some other teams. Like he just needs like a few to hit to make noise. But I think just having Allen and Chase has me higher on Roden than others might be.
Yeah, so I also have Roden in my 9. Again, I know Dash was very negative on him, and it almost seemed like it came to his defense. But again, after looking at it, I still stand that he's not in my bottom 3. I think there's a tier break for me. I don't have him in my bottom 3. I do think he has a shot to compete for the wild card. Again, my 4 through 9, I feel like all have a shot. But with that being said, looking at his roster and especially taking a second look at it, I'm just not sold at all on his depth. I mean, his flex 3 is Chuba Hubbard, and I think week 3 or 4, Jonathan Brooks is coming back, and I think he's going to take over that job. And I don't think Chuba Hubbard is going to be relevant. And by the way, week 5 is when bye weeks hit. So when bye weeks start happening and Chuba's not even really a serviceable guy coming off the bench, and he's your flex 3 right now. Again, I love his top part of his draft. Like I even like the Neighbors pick going early, even with Daniel Jones. I just think he's just such a stud. I think he's gonna produce this year. I really like his team, but when bye weeks start to happen, it's a longer season. We got 14 regular season games. Someone's bound to get hurt. Like when you're having to plug these guys on the bench that we don't even know if they're going to be like rostered in any other league by week 4 or 5, that's a major problem. So I have to put him at the bottom of that tier that I have. So I got Roden at my 9.
My 10th spot, I got our guy ZT, Mr. 69 himself. We talked about it earlier, but the IU question mark, the Najee Harris, like just how bad he is. Javonte Williams, I mean, the team themselves is not sold on him. Deontay Johnson sucks. Brian Robinson sucks. It's just not. It's not a good team. The flex spots are a major concern for me, and I just don't. And the flex spots are a concern, and the bench to replace those those flex spots are a concern. So I'm not with ZT at all this year. It's unfortunate because usually I root for him. Actually, no, I don't root for him, but I'm pretty biased when it comes against ZT. I don't want him winning a championship. I want him to be the continued. And I think so. And there's another year where CT misses out on a championship. So the longest tenured owner without a champion in the BL championship in the BL Plus. And another year goes by. So 2024, see you later, buddy. Cobb.
You might have convinced me to drop ZT down. I'm gonna go with this one pains me a little bit. I'm gonna go with little Jack, Sir Jack Louie at the 10th spot. That's not to say that I don't see potential with this team. I just don't think that, of course, Yak Lou's here late, slurring some words, man. But I'm going to have Jack here just because I just don't think he has anyone that's separating him from the rest of the pack. I think his ceiling's pretty low. I think it's a safe team, but nothing that like puts him over the edge. This is definitely a team I could see like in the 7 or 8 spot, but making the playoffs is something I don't currently see unless like Pickens continues his upward trajectory. I know Pacheco, people are big on him, but like Diggs is in the crowded receiver room. Kirk, who knows how that offense looks? I don't know this year. I do like that he got Brian Thomas. That's a guy I really wanted. A-Chain, that's a guy that was amazing last year. Let's see if it continues. But yeah, just no real ground or game breakers for me right now.
So my 10th spot, I got ZB in my 10. And the reason being for me, primarily, it's what we talked about, right? Who's his number one guy? He doesn't have the number one guy. like his highest tendered guy is going on like the 2-3 turn. And so he's just missing that top heaviness. And for me, if you're missing that top heaviness, I know we were talking about Dash's team where, he didn't have that top guy, but he had a lot of that tier 2 depth, and he had Mahomes. And so Mahomes can make up for it. Plus the extra depth can make up for a lapse in, where other teams who don't have a lot of depth and they start having big holes during bye weeks and injuries. For me, when you have a guy like Deshaun Watson, who, in most formats is probably not even starting. If you look at different 12-man leagues, he's probably not even a starter, especially with guys like Purdy and Tua and Goff, who have been producing. So not having that top guy plus having, the quarterback situation, his depth is okay. Factoring all that in, and it's year 2 for him in this league. And, it usually takes, this is a league that usually takes, 3 years in to really get your feet underneath you. So for those reasons, I have him right now at my 10.
Yeah. Okay. So 11, I have Dave Roden, my guy Dave, who's probably not my guy this year as far as fantasy wise. I'll be rooting for him though, Dave. I'll be rooting for you, buddy. Alex said it. Chuba Hubbard starting. The guy might not be on roster at the end of the year in this league, and then his backups doesn't have any backups. Malik Neighbors, I don't know. Everyone's buying him. I'm not buying him. Daniel Jones is his quarterback. I'm not buying him, definitely. But I think it's going to take a while for Neighbors to come on. And I just don't think Neighbors – and you're not going to keep him anyway. So it's going to take a while for him to come on. I don't like Dalton Kincaid at all. Outside of Josh Allen, he's like the lower tier version of Adams' team. Like he's going to be carried by CMC. This is like a bottom feeder version of like that team, but with Josh Allen carrying it. And if Josh Allen, doesn't have weeks where he's not going off, this team's not going off. So this team, luckily, there's another person in this league who gave Roden a lot of analysis for this draft because he's lucky that guy's in this league this year because Roden has that guy to be the pancake king, and he's not it. So luckily, he's got that going for him. So I love you, Dave. Cobb?
My 11th spot, I think I had him, if we rewind a year, I think I had him at my 11th spot last year after pre-draft rankings and most of the year. I have ZB. It's unfortunate because, again, really like ZB. I think he knows his stuff. I just have never, for whatever reason, the teams have just not stuck out to me. But like it's coming from someone who just got last place in this league. So my analysis is, it can be off. But with that being said, it's kind of similar to what I was saying about Jack's team. There's just no one that really stands out to me. I think there's a lot of okay players, but the difference here is like you were saying earlier with Deshaun Watson. I just really don't like that start. Stafford could be a good filler maybe later down the line, but like, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm not really excited about any of these players. So that's why I'm at 11. But it's a clear separation between him and 12. This is definitely still a team I could see making a run or at least a push to make it interesting later on.
But Dave has a comment here. Boys, Chuba was a late round pick who I didn't think to start, but he ended the season getting 20 carries a game. Worth something for the first few weeks. The fact that glad I'm playing Ashley week 1. Oh, that's true. You are playing me week 1. But the fact that you are starting a guy to draft in the last round of the draft, doesn't that tell you something about the other rounds where you didn't get anybody to kind of fill in? I mean, that would be my pushback to that. But like I said, I'm not rooting. This is not personal. I'm not rooting against Roden. I just don't. I think this is an 11th squad, But yes, week 1 you'll be able to prove it. And right now the projections have you beating me. So, I think slightly beating me. So yeah, I know. It's not my year. I don't think. Okay, so we're gonna get to the Pancake King.
All right, I gotta give my my 11 real quick.
Oh, you didn't give your 11 yet?
No, I didn't give my 11.
Damn. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
So I got Jack at my 11. Actually, doing a double look at this. Honestly, I might even switch ZB and Jack and put Jack at 10 and ZB at 11, but they're kind of interchangeable. Primarily the thing for me is, again, who's his number one guy? It's probably Pacheco, but he's still, and I'm very, very high on Pacheco this year, but on paper, when you look at rankings, he doesn't have that top guy. And then again, I like Kyler over Purdy. I'm not sure kind of why who he's leaning. So for that reason, I actually probably have him at like my 10 slot. Again, he's just missing that. that top heaviness, and then he's kind of banking on a couple people to hit, like Brian Thomas Jr., who again is a rookie. We just don't know yet. I'm high on him personally, but again, we just don't know. And so he doesn't have that surefireness depth. So just kind of combining all those, I have him on the outside looking in. Again, realistically, probably have him at 10 and actually ZB at 11, but again, kind of interchangeable there.
All right, so it's that time of the year, boys. Get ready for that music. We haven't heard this tune in a while, and it's kind of nice. We have the current Pancake King going to talk about the next Pancake King to pass on the torch. So here we go.
You are the Pancake King, young and sweethearting fan of thieves. Ooh, see that boy, watch that taste, digging the Pancake King.
That's how you know. That's how you know it's the fall and fantasy is back when you hear that. When you hear that tune. So my Pancake King belongs to the reigning champion, the back-to-back champion, or the three-peat champion, and that's our guy Matt Hotch. We've pretty much already killed this team. It's a team that looks like it should be a dynasty team. He's starting a running back that probably wouldn't start in most dynasty teams, or might not even be rostered in some dynasty leagues. Some, but yeah, Bucky Irving's a starting running back. Come on, was that a guy from Captain America? Come on, it's not his year. Hotch is not winning this year. Hotch might not win a game this year. Hotch is going to start out the season maybe 0-5. I'm willing to bet that Hotch starts the season 0-4, 0-5. So, yeah, the Pancake King is Matt Hotch by a long shot. So,
yeah, one I can't get used to that tune still. That's something I did not miss, but I mean I can't say it's not catchy. Not much else to add there. Hotch, bottom tier. I think if we enacted embargo on him, he's kind of fucked this year. No one trades with him, doesn't get the pieces that he thinks he can get, or future assets. Yeah, I think he's kind of screwed and put himself in a place that I think he is happy to be in, though. Like he's ready to eat. He's ready to just create another dynasty after this year.
Yeah, my Pancake King is the same as you guys, Hotch. Not much to say about his team. I just don't think, with everything that he has, I just don't think he can be competitive. We talked about a lot of good rosters tonight. The only thing I will say, because as we mentioned earlier, like I think we all are in agreement that he wouldn't really mind being the Pancake King because he puts himself in a spot, especially now that you can't, when we changed the rule 2-3 years ago that you can't pick swap in the sense of like, trading back and around that you're keeping someone. It makes the 101 way more powerful because like if you had, you look at a team like Adam, who the last couple of years has obviously, been keeping Christian McCaffrey as a first round tender. If you end up with, the number 3 pick in the draft and you could, previously you could pick swap, it puts you in a spot where you can then keep that elite player and get some assets for it because you can't pick swap. It puts people in a position like myself this year where I was the 2 seed if we still had that ability to pick swap, I probably would have, in all honesty, kept Bijan Robinson if I could have traded back to the end of the first round. Obviously I was in a position where I actually had 2 first round picks. So I would have been able to do it with my last one under the old rules. But hypothetically speaking, if I didn't, right, I would have moved back to get those assets. But now because we can't pick swap, I'm in a position where I'm sending those guys back. Hence the 101 being able to select players that are incredibly, the difference obviously like in some people's rankings between Bijan and then Saquon, who went at the 102. Some people have Saquon like the first or second pick in the second round. And I've even seen some mocks with Christian McCaffrey's injury where they have Bijan at the 101 or 102. I've seen him that high in some redraft, boards that I've had. So the value of the 101 pick being that high and Hotch's ability to basically just throw this year out the window and secure that, plus secure hopefully some, in addition to CeeDee Lamb, some elite keepers that maybe he had some 1 or 2 picks, he'll be in a really good spot next year. So I'm not saying that this needs to be raised to the question, but is there a conversation to be had about, potential tanking rules? I know obviously the punishment being last place, is quote unquote there to prevent taking. But I'm sure there's some people, especially like Hotch, who's a nut in this league. I think he would gladly set himself up to potentially win a 6th title, by having to eat some of these pancakes. And so I know some other leagues have, where last place still gets Pancake King, but then kind of like the winner of the consolation bracket gets the first overall pick. It's something throughout this year, especially if Hotch goes like 0-6, 0-7 to start this year. And it's just clear and obvious that he's ran away with the last pick, the Pancake King halfway through the season. And it's just clear and obvious that it's his. Like at some point there might need to be a conversation about, potentially putting in rules to prevent taking, but just a thought.
I mean, I would say this as a counter to that is the fact that, the punishment's pretty tough. So, like, if you are tanking, you're tanking to be feeling like shit. I mean, Cobb doesn't even want to step into an IHOP. That's our sponsor, but Cobb doesn't even want to step into an IHOP anymore because of how bad that punishment is. So, I guess you kind of earned it, I would say, if you have to go through the gauntlet of eating a million pancakes. So, that's right. That's my only counter to that whole thing. We can discuss it, but we'll see, because oftentimes the worst team doesn't usually get the first pick. Which, I mean, last year was a good example of it between Yags' whole thing and Cobb. So, but okay, so we're running a little late here. It was going to be an hour and a half episode, not 2 hours. So we're going to go to playoff ranks, and the playoff ranks. We're going to list 6 to 1. Just give me a 1-sentence blurb about the team. No tangents here. I know I like to trail off and do my own thing, but we'll stick to be concise here. 1 sentence here. So we're going to go to our playoff ranks. My 6th spot is my guy, Yaglu. I know these two dogged him earlier, but I got to say, I love his team top to bottom. It's probably one of the top to bottom best teams in the league as far as the starting roster, and that's why he's my 6th spot. Outside the starting roster, it goes off a little bit, but that's where I got Yaglu at 6. Cobb?
Yeah, it's 6 for me. I have Adam. I know you guys had him bottom. I guess Adam is my Yags for you, but super questionable bench. But I think he has studs for his starters that can carry him every week. It's just a matter of if one of those bench guys can actually hit. So,
yeah, my 6th spot, I got ZT. I just think he's so top heavy between Lamar, St. Brown, Gibbs, and Kelsey. I think between those top 4, it's arguably one of the best top 4 in the entire league. I know there's questions about Ayuk, but especially if he ends up re-signing in that offense, and he's obviously very comfortable in that offense, I think he can end up being a top fantasy asset as well. And I like some of the picks he has on his bench. So, again, it's a very tough competition for that kind of 6th spot. But I like where he's at right now going into the year.
Sorry, I was muted there. My 5, I got Stu. Like we said, it's a very limited roster. It's not a lot of home run hitters, but it's a lot of solid guys. It's probably the rich man's version of what I just saw with Yaglu's team. Top to bottom, it's a solid team. I don't like his quarterback situation, but nonetheless, I'm a big fan of what Stu has over there. Maybe a little older, but I like what he's got going over there. That's my number 5 team. But it is an election year, so this could very well be null. So, Cobb?
Yeah, it's something I didn't think about. I have Stu at 5 as well. For the reasons you just stated. I think his depth scares me a little bit as well. And he needs to repeat this years with Puka and Kyron that we saw last year. So I think it really all comes down to that. And if Anthony Richardson can be the guy that a lot of people think he can be.
Yeah, so at my 5, I have Dash's team. I think it's a coin flip. I think it's a coin flip between who I have at 4 and 5. It really is. Like, I think they're pretty much interchangeable. The main reason just being, I just think, he doesn't have one of those elite running back or receivers, like those Tyreek type of guy, Breece Hall type of guys. And so for that reason, I don't have him in my top 3, but I think with the amount of depth that he has, plus Mahomes, that extra bench depth that he has, I think is really going to help come bye weeks, and just, he's never going to have a dip, aside from the 1 week that Mahomes is out. And so, I just think Mahomes has the ability to win games in those depths. He's not going to have any kind of weak points. So he'll be able to make up for that, that potential boom factor that he's missing. So yeah, I got him at my 5.
Alex is never going to see this show again after this. No, it's okay. It's the super early predictions. I don't care about these. It's later on in the season, which I get mad about. I don't actually get mad, but I kind of do. But my number 4, I have. It might shock you. I got myself. I just think that the top 3 teams have more meat on their roster as far as home run hitting talent and having a good full-on roster. Because I love my roster. I love my starting lineup. I just think these guys have a really good starting lineup. And on top of that, they have really good, guys who can go off. I mean, I just have Mahomes. I just have to hope for everyone to kind of be consistent, 15 to 20. These teams have multiple guys who can go off, and they have a good full-out starting roster. So I'm not blind to these things. I'm not ignorant. Okay, I know. I know what I know. So yeah, we're a 4 spot, but we could be a team that can be playing in the championship weekend, which never doubt the Dashmeister. Cobb.
Yeah, we might have the same top 5. I view as 4 as well. I think a lot of it has to do with you've been here before, and also what we talked about with just having a well-rounded squad. Mahomes, again, one of the best assets, if not the best asset in the league, and the team around him, just a bunch of guys that I think other teams overlooked, and you were able to stack up a bunch of depth that a lot of teams are lacking, and that'll separate you, especially in the second half of the season.
Yeah, my number 4, I got Stu. I just think it's just such a solid lineup from top to bottom. I think, again, he's just one of those teams that's just it's not too top heavy. He doesn't lack depth. I think it's just pretty smooth. And so I think he's one of those teams that have a very high floor every week. His ceiling, I don't think, is as high as some other teams. And so, because of that, there might be a couple opponents that kind of go off and doesn't have the ability to, compete and win those games, and which kind of keeps him out of my top 3. But I think, his floor being, as high as it potentially is every week, it's got me putting him at 4. And again, I kind of have my 4 and 5 pretty interchangeable, but I got Stu right now at my 4.
My 3, I'll be very quick here. I got my guy Cobb. I love that Cobb has a top tier quarterback. And this is what kind of separates him from myself, where he has a top tier quarterback like I do, but he also has a plus receiver in Garrett Wilson, who's supposed to be A plus. Bijan Robinson, Evan Ingram's also A plus. I had him last year, solid. And then he's got, yes, there's some question marks with Olave and Zay Flowers, and even Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's not a lock; he's a rookie. But I mean, that's a solid team, and Burrow's there. That kind of makes all the difference. And Cobb really has lacked having that kind of A plus power from the quarterback spot in a few years, not since the Kyler Murray championship days. So yeah, I'm gonna go Cobb at number 3.
Yeah, you're making my job easy. We have the same top 5 and saying the same thing. So have me at 3. Thought about putting myself a little higher, but I think there are some riskier plays, and I'm more of I think if I would put myself higher, is more of I'm putting it like some of these guys at the highest potential. But these are things that we need to see play out, specifically with MHJ, Olave, and Wilson, which is why I can't put myself much higher than that. But I'm excited with the roster I have. I've told you 1 year rebuild, and I'm hoping I'm right back at it.
So for my 3, I actually got myself at the 3. It was really tough choice. My 2 and 3 are pretty close here. But after looking at both squads, this is what it came down. This is honestly what it came down to in terms of unbiasedly putting my team at 3 instead of 2. Week 1 and week 12, I played Cobb squad, and I think it's almost a lock. He's going to win both those games. And so I think because of that swing, it's just enough to keep me outside of the bye week and putting myself at 3. Calling it now, lock. Cobb wins week 1.
Wow. All right, we already got the first reverse jinx of the year. My number 2 is Alex. I love this team, but there are some question marks here between him and the number 1 squad. There's more question marks with this team. CJ Stroud had an amazing year, but he's coming into a sophomore year. A lot of times quarterbacks decline the second year because there's more tape on these guys. Cooper Kupp, I mean, we saw the injuries galore last year, and he's only getting older. Jonathan Taylor's had some injury problems in the past. Saquon Barkley, new scenery could be key, but another guy who's been plagued with injury problems. Aaron Jones, another guy who's questionable every week. And then Tank Dell, who, obviously had the bad injury last year. Yes, he looks like he's ripe and he's back and healthy, but there are a lot of injury question mark guys on that team. When they're healthy, A-plus talent. But there's a lot of things you have to account for as far as the injuries with those guys. So that's why I have you at number 2, not number 1, but number 2 right now.
Yeah, I have Alex number 2 as well. I was going to avoid the reverse jinx attempt week 1. I think week 1 of 12 now, I'm thinking he has a pretty good chance of winning, maybe even a lock. But yeah, I mean, I think he has a potential top stack. I really like the young talent outside of, obviously Cup isn't that, but that he has on his bench as well. So I think these are guys that he can let develop as the year goes on, and then we'll have like a super strong bench as well to go with his already solid starters. So I'm excited to see what that team can do.
Yeah, so I have Cobb sitting at my 2. Really like his squad. I think especially he's got like 4 guys, as I mentioned earlier, that are going inside the top 2, rounds, from a redraft standpoint. To me, the biggest question. So like, I really think obviously, there's multiple teams that have a legit shot to get a bye week this year. I think for Cobb, it truly comes down to the performance of Joe Burrow. Like, I think that's where it hinges. Like, if Joe Burrow stays healthy and has an MVP type season, I think there's a case to make that Cobb could be the number 1 team. But if Burrow has another injury or maybe Jamar Chase goes down, whatever the case is, or he just kind of has a so-so season and finishes fantasy-wise between like QB like 9 to like 15, like a season like Trevor Lawrence had last year, like if a situation like that happens, I think he has the chance to slide to, kind of one of those wild card type of teams. But as long as he stays healthy and hits, I think Cobb has a very high ceiling.
Agreed. And number 1, so the team that we all think, that I think is the going to be the top team going into the season as far as the AP preseason ranks, the BL Plus. I have Tasia at that spot. I mean, Tasia, we talked about how he nailed the draft, but Jalen Hurts, Tyreek Hill, Breece Hall, Etienne, Rashee Rice, Godwin, Trey McBride, and then on as a potential fill-in flex, either Zamir White, Jaden Reed, Zach Moss, Cortland Sutton, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, that's a team to be reckoned with. He's got a top 3 quarterback, top 3 receiver, top 3 running back, and also top 4 tight end. Based on that alone, it's pretty tough to say another team's better than him as of right now. And I know he's loving this. This is his 3rd year in the league, going into his 3rd year. So he thinks he has a shot to win it all this year, and that'd be a pretty fast turnaround from what he got with CP's team to where he's going right now. And he had to do a full rebuild. There was no one on that team. So good luck to Tasia in this year, but he's my number 1 right now.
Yeah, sounds like we all have Tasia at number 1. Not much to add. Obviously, talked about his draft already, and he's just top to bottom easily. Seems like the best team with his starters and how loaded his like top guys are, and then just how well-rounded his bench is. So it's going to be hard to compete with Tasia. I knew he was really happy with his draft and how everything played out. And it's kind of like one of those, just right place, right time. So Tasia 1 for now.
Yeah, I got Tasia at 1 as well. I think he's done a fantastic job rebuilding this team. I will say that trade he did with Hotch to acquire, obviously his top 2 guys. It might have even been his top. Actually, it was because he got Jonathan Taylor as well, who he flipped for 2 fourths between Tyreek and Breece and Jonathan Taylor for CeeDee Lamb. Like I think that trade single-handedly set him up going into this year to probably be the top team. And I think obviously the draft fell perfectly in his favor, being able to, having ETN fall and then the ability for, multiple people in that 2nd round to pass up on Hurts. And then for him to trade up and acquire him, like everything fell perfectly for him. So I got him on 1 seed. Again, not a super team. I don't think it's his to lose. I think there is a path forward for a couple of other teams in the mix if everything goes right and stays healthy. And obviously, Tasia's team has 1 or 2 injuries. Not calling it a lock at all for him to win it all this year, but got him at my 1 and probably a favorite to secure one of the bye weeks.
Yeah, so Tasia seems like the odds-on favorite to win this whole thing as of right now. Although, well, Alex is not a super team. I think he is a super team, but that's just my opinion. However, it was a 2-hour epic long episode of the BL Plus. Usually the post-draft analysis ones are the longest. Then after that, we go week to week. We won't have a show next week. The season will kick off the following week. So 2 weeks will be our kickoff episode to the 2024 actual season. But we hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you guys next time. Take it easy, fellas. Have a good night.
See you guys.
See everybody.